Well, hello and welcome to another rip-roaring edition of the full 80 minutes with your favourite rugby league quartet. It is the gang, myself, Mick the Game Caller Gledel. We have Joe Me the Money. We've got Jimmy Mack, who looks like he's wearing a Mac. Are you still at a game, Jimmy? And we've got the King, Craig, Show Me the Money Harrison. So thank you very much for joining us on Show Me the Money Rugby League TV on YouTube. As always, like, subscribe. And you'll get regular rugby league content because we are back. As promised, it is the third show of the new year. We are going to start off with a very emotive subject, Craig, which of course was Luke Gale's testimonial, which took place on Friday at Bellevue, Wakefield against Castleford. A very, very good turnout considering the conditions, almost biblical at times. I never knew rain. I thought it was only at Odsal where you'd get the rain coming in sideways, but a very good, healthy turnout. Just over 3,000 fans there in very difficult conditions and a good first look out of Wakefield Cass. But before we focus on Wakefield and Cass and what happened on the field, you yourself, Craig, you got up, you did a bit of a speech with John Keir. We all heard from Luke Gale at the end what the occasion meant to him. Have you spoken to him since? What's Luke Gale's thoughts on it all?
Well, it was a fantastic turnout, and the corporate room, as you well know, Mick, were packed. I actually did the auction after you went, which were challenging because they'd had about 12 pints by then, and they let about 100 people in, so it were carnage, to be honest. I thought, the first time Joe was giving me a compliment in about 6 years, he went, "You did really well there, Dad." And I went way home, I was driving thinking, he never gives me a compliment, this is weird. So yeah, I got the props. I think that Luke did fantastic on the day. It was well deserved. I think I said when I stood up on stage, or I think we had to do a little video for Wakefield. He deserves everything he gets. He kept Super League going for 3 years, and I genuinely believe he did. I think that when that period, when Tompkins had just whatever, I think he'd gone to New Zealand Warriors, and we were looking for someone to. We always have somebody who takes the baton on. And I think Luke took the baton on and was the premier player for that 3 year period. It helped Cass playing as it did. But one thing I did find funny, and I hope it's for young players. We've got a player coming later on the show. There's not one way to the top, is there, Mick? When you listen to John Bastian and John Keir and myself, and we said about him having, I think it's 8 clubs with Keithley, or maybe 7 clubs. And then at Keithley, you're thinking it's all over because he had a terrible time at Hull, and that's not disrespect to Hull fans or Hull club. It just didn't work. He got that sending off when he left the footing on Lomax. Then he got the injury. They were saying he paid a lot of money for him. They were probably wanting Sneedy. I think they still were a hangover of Mark Sneed, and Gale is different. He went to Keighley, and I don't know if you remember, they played Featherstone on TV.
50-0.
And I thought that has got to be the lowest point of his career, that he'd gone from there, and within 18 months of leaving Leeds in
Challenge Cup winners,
in not very good circumstances, he's ended up getting 50 put past him at Featherstone. And he was working on a roof with his brother. He's in -3, and I could remember thinking, and then Wakey, and it ends like that. Maybe good people and good players end up like that. I think that you were there, the best ending could possibly end. And it was funny watching him play. He'd done a pre-season to play that game. He got himself fit. Probably said, "You're getting quarter of an hour." But he said to me after the game, I'm happily retired. Like, he said he felt for the first time that no way could he play at that level. Whereas last year, there were times after Andy were thinking, hey, I could still do a stint here. I think it put the curtain down on a fabulous career, and I think he could be a top coach. I think I've had some, not stick this week, but I think I said Scott Taylor, and I've had loads of texts saying you've said this about Scott Taylor on the programme, and I can't remember, just for people, I never remember a thing I say after this, and I get texts. They've obviously had the result of the weekend. I think same with Luke. I think you've got character like that. Does this sound old-fashioned? But if you go out for a pint with Scott Taylor, he comes to races with us, sales. He's a good character tag. Well, Gale is exactly the same. They're just, you could forget about football. Go for a game of golf. Go for a game of paddle. Good characters, proper lads, proper people to be around it. You know, and Luke's charismatic as well. He can carry a room. So I think there are all the elements for him to be a top coach, and I hope he does.
Yeah. It was interesting listening to Luke at the end when obviously he was going through some of his career highlights, and he mentioned obviously that fantastic golden point extra time win against St Helens at Weldon Road, where obviously the winning drop goal goes between the posts, and then Castleford beat Saints and go to the grand final. Obviously, we know what happened last year with Wakefield, but how much do you think, Craig, the fact that he'd had all that success sort of on the field with clubs, but to actually go to Wembley in 2020 and get that Challenge Cup win against Salford, because there's a lot of players. I guess the football equivalent, probably someone like Harry Kane, who's been there, done it, but never actually won anything. But it was really pleasing for Luke Gale in probably his twilight years to get the Challenge Cup win, the 1895, and then that Championship Grand Final.
Well, you sat next to two lads who've never won anything in their careers
Till
listen, Luke mentioned I thought his best game was the Wigan semi-final. I always say it the same. I've never seen him dominate a game like he did that day. Whatever he had left in him, he put in that game, and I think that was I didn't think anybody could kick Wigan to death like he did, and then he put a tackle on Zach early doors. His intent were made, and he knew the squad were quite inexperienced, and let's be honest, probably not good enough. But he led them. That's what the great players do. Danny did it in 17, where you look round, you say, can we win this game? I don't know, but one thing for sure, you've got the best player on the pitch. And if you played sport, Mick, which obviously you stopped at 8, is if you played sport
16, 17.
Yeah.
Mate, don't let him get to you. He got dropped at Donny School. That's the best teammate.
I had a good season for Undercliff.
If you played it, and you know what, we should talk about this, and lads think, if you played a sporting environment at any sport and you've got the best player in your team, it does make a difference. I thought about it when you look at it, you go, okay, these are probably player for player better than us, but we've got this player who is the best player on the pitch. And if you talk about sports psychology, I reckon in changing rooms, just done a thing on Cantona, I don't know if you've seen it, lads, with Neville's, and they asked him what best player, and they all gone, Cantona. And Roy Keane said, and they all said, as soon as he come, he was best player. And Man U had some unbelievable players, Giggs, they did Keane, he was best player among them. And he said for 4 years, they won, I didn't know till the other day, they won 4 out of 5 titles, and they didn't win the Champions League, which they said Eric saw as a failure. But imagine having somebody in room who's better than all you, which is thing, and I think Gailey has been that player. I think, the greats have. I think it does make a massive difference, and it'll be interesting, Bevan, obviously, would you say he's been best player at Wigan for the last 3 years? Yeah. They've won 2 titles. Do you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
You've got a real, and I think it does make a difference. As I've said, here's a question for you three. I'll just flip it. Where would you put Gailey in Super League best players of all time? Super League. We're not going back to the Ellery Hanley Schofield. Super League status. Would he make top 10?
No.
Joe?
I'd have him top 30.
I think he'd make top 10,
30.
15 halfbacks. So like I said, there's been a lot of good players. I am
absolutely astonished.
He makes top 10.
Are you having a fucking laugh here? So if Luke Gale thinks he makes the top 10 or 15 halfbacks in Super League.
History? Am I thinking too long?
Around 25 years.
You have to get this out of this quick, because I think that's the worst comment I've ever heard.
I would have Luke Gale in terms of what he can do on the field and influence in the top 30. Players overall.
Not halfbacks.
It would definitely be in the top 50.
Who in Super League history would you put better than Gailey for halfback? Of what he did?
Well, off the top of your head.
He won 4 Albert Goldtops, which meant he was best player for.
What Gailey's got is almost like a little bit of Matt Letizia, where he's not got the... You've got to say, like, you think of Sean Long, Danny Maguire, who have obviously won loads. So, everyone would go, well, you put them to it. Then you've got, like, Leon Price. And then you start...
You put Leon above Gailey?
Me, personally...
It's good crack. Me, won't get his personal.
Yeah, I would. Because you always have to factor in wins and what they've won, even though I generally am on the lines of, I'd still have Matt Letizia, who's one of the best Premier League players, even though he won nothing. Bit like Harry Kane, one of the best Premier League strikers, but won nothing. For me, I'm in middle. I can't put him in top 10 Super League players of all time.
Because
top 30.
Because Gale, would you say Gailey's period of the 2 years where he was the man was one of the best 2 years as a player?
I'll give you a question. Would you put Gailey above Zach Hardacre in best Super League players of all time?
I would 100% put Luke Gale above 98%. I have Gailey.
Would you put him above Zach Hardacre?
No, let me make my point.
I'll finish.
You interrupted me because you got passionate, which is but you interrupted me. I think Gailey had a 2-3 year period from, like you said, from probably 2015 to 2019, where it was like a 3 year period where if you put that 3 year period against most others' best 3 year period, that's Gailey tops most. But for no offence to Gailey, he spent years at Donny, years at Thing.
He spent 1 year at Donny.
1 year at Donny, but then Bradford.
London. He had 3 years at
Bradford,
London.
exactly.
Playing
but we're talking about
Super League.
Like, Gailey's Super League was all about Cass.
There were three.
And it was a short. Gailey's stint at Leeds in Super League, if that was his only involvement in Super League, I agree with you. That semi-final and final, I thought it were man of match in both. But we're talking, you're putting him up as a top 10 player up against Andy Farrell, Paul Sculthorpe, Danny Maguire.
At the top team in Super League.
Top 10s.
I think he had a 3 year stretch that was phenomenal. And I love Gale. I absolutely, I've known him since I was thinking, phenomenal. But his journey is special because of a different reason. It's not like like he had a 12-year stretch at the top 3 team and just took apart.
It's even better.
I would say
it's not in terms of top. It's
has
not
been a top 10 Super League player.
Has he had a top 5 story of all time? Yes.
Paul Deakin, Mick.
Yes, the great baby-faced assassin.
Because he won more than Gailey. Does he go above Gailey Super League?
Personally, I would say yes, because Paul Deakin was integral to all that success with Bradford.
Wow.
And it's not always about, like you say.
He's had the top 3 storylines.
I've got 6 players at Leeds who've won 6 grand finals, 5. I won't get in any top 4 side ever.
But you'd always put. I know what you're saying, but 10 players is a small pool.
That's a small pool.
You've got to think of props like Jamie Peacock's always going in. Sean O'Loughlin would probably have to go in there above him. Andy Farrell certainly.
Nicole or Sean Taylor.
I think for me, Luke Gale's Luke Gale.
I'm asking you, that's the question.
Yeah. Lomax is above Gailey for me. Luke Gale's legacy for me, and this is why I think I will forever mention Luke Gale for as long as I do this, and have done in nearly every meeting with a player, is because you'd struggle to find a better journey than he's had to go and have as many clubs and go on that alternative route to get into the top, having that year at Castleford in a team which is as good as any team in a year we've ever seen in Super League, and then to have the little moment back at Leeds and nearly single-handedly winning the Challenge Cup from over 2 games. I think his story is possibly one of the best, and his legacy
top
is
5 in 2 things.
Never give up, no matter what pathway you have to take, to tell young lads, you might not have the Danny Maguire route where it's a scholarship academy, bang, bang, bang. You might have to do this. And it's so good for us to say, look what Gailey did. Look where he ended up after going through years of rebuilding himself, learning, trusting you to go to clubs which many players would be too scared to go to. And you can still go out like he did on Friday night with a Challenge Cup winners medal, Man of Steel, when he hasn't been blessed with, other than 1 year in 2017, he was never in the best team in the league. Danny Maguire has been in the best team in the league for years. Longy and Pricey were. Even Deacon was at a time. And that's what's special about him, is because he had such a different
top
journey.
5 of 2 things of a 2-3 year stretch is that 2-3 year stretch comparable to some of the greats? Probably yes. And top 3 story, like Super League storyline success stories of all time. I think in terms of top 10 players, it's a tough one because there is people who've held the table on the top table for 10 plus years, which you've got whatever you're thinking. Other players and Gailey side by side, best point at best point, and Gailey might beat some of them at his best versus when you've held the table for 10 plus years, I think you deserve that top 10.
I'm sure. I'm probably. This is where I'm coming from with it. We met Danny Brough yesterday. One of my favourite players. Never won a tin.
Good comparison. Yeah.
I think by listening to you put Gailey a bit in that category.
No, I'm above.
And maybe Lee Breeze as well.
I look at that, and I've never put him in that because I probably watched him at London as a young lad, and I thought he was the best young player. I think he got young player at year in Super League at 21, 20. So he was a star coming through at London. He got to Bradford, and Mick will remember this, but they did a poll, and I always said him the worst polls ever. The fans chose to. Freddie Cummings said to me, if we lose one player I can't lose, it's Luke Gale. He said it to me 25 times. They can have anybody. They can't take him because he's the only person keeping us from getting beat 15-11 because his kicking in yardage was just that good at that time. The fans voted to get rid of Gale and keep Samet. They did a poll and they said, yeah, Gale, but the fans were only watching the Spice.
Yeah.
And Freddie were in total like, I can't believe it. He said the fans are putting pressure on to get rid of. Not rid of Gailey, but if they had to put the money to keep Jared, he said, I can't decide on Jared. It's impossible. It's an absolute impossibility. What's going to do 3 shampoo goals and not kicking?
4 mistakes. Yeah.
So, and then Cass, obviously, forget about Cass, we all know that sort of thing is. I think in between that, his level of playing in his peak would be as good as any halfback in Super League history. When Gailey was at his best, and you're saying all 3 years for that 3-year period, I'd probably look at some of the things he did at Bradford as extraordinary. Couldn't believe it to watch it. I think what he did at Leeds in the small period he did is, I think his levels of that for a period was unplayable. I think he dominated a game. I've not seen many players totally dominate the full field like he did at the level he got to. Obviously, that's why he got picked as the England 7. And we've always like, listen, is it his fault he never got to Leeds at 21? Looking back, we spoke about it. Could he have stayed at Leeds and would he have got in? Because we always knew he'd get better as he got older because of the way he played. He needed time because he wasn't blessed with that yard of Danny Maguire and Rob. They just had a yard of pace. But overall playing, he was certainly a better kicker than both of them to get put together. He certainly could game match.
Manage it, yeah.
He was more Kevin with a bit more running.
Yeah. If
he got to Saints, if he got to Wigan at that age, would we have seen a kid who would have been hailed as one of the... I think, that's why I'm quite excited that he did the other things because... And he still maintained his standards.
Yeah, it's great. But,
if I'm picking my best 6 and 7, and I'm biased, of course I'm biased. I hope people say, fucking biased. Of course you are.
Yeah, you're going to get slaughtered.
Yeah, I love it. I've been slaughtered.
It's going to get slaughtered for top.
Yeah, I've been slaughtered for the last couple of weeks on saying that Leeds will finish in top 4. Well, you know,
you won't because we're fifth favourites.
I've already been slaughtered. You don't know.
By one
yes,
person.
but if you go off the bookies, you're not miles off.
I'm telling you now, if you told me to pick me perfect 6 and me perfect 7, I would have Maguire Gale as my. And I'm not about give me. I love Longy, Bruffy. You know how much I think of Bruffy. I still laugh when I see him.
I think that's less of an outrageous shout than top 10 of all time.
That is. No, I said, is he in the top 10?
Oh.
I'm asking you the question.
You've got him
and then Joe said about being,
changed it a bit.
And then we said about being in the halves top 10. That's what got a bit. I look at Gailey, and I do honestly. Overall, if you said to me, right, you've got one pick, you go in. This is your last pick. I'm picking Danny's running game and Gailey's first receiver game control above anything.
I think you'd have a lot of more people agree with that.
Well, there you go. And I'm sure Luke Gale's watching this and laughing and loving the discussion about him. Well, Friday night, we'll move on to the game. Wakefield against Castleford. Oh boy, I've just got to call it as it is. I was sat next to John Bastian and Simon Bell. And before Wakefield got that first try, I said this is going to be 20 or 30. I was shocked just how small Castleford looked. They certainly, in my opinion, were never really in that wrestle. Zach Seeney, their new Australian centre, who they've kind of bigged up and built up because he was at West Tigers and Parramatta. You even said it yourself, Craig, he looked very, very small. They were exposed on that left edge all evening. What's funny, Joe?
You've just dragged that.
No, we're just being honest because we know there'll be Castleford fans watching this.
I don't know what I did say that, but if you go along with it, I did.
Yeah. No, look, we're not throwing players or teams under the bus. We're giving an accurate reflection of what we saw. And certainly Castleford were exposed more than once on that left defensive edge. And if you go on their Facebook post from the supporters who were there, obviously there's this kind of Cass in crisis, which you're never going to be in crisis after one pre-season game. You know, they've got Hull FC coming to the Jungle this Saturday, and it could all be put right. But the point I was trying to make about that game was a lot of people had obviously placed Castleford a lot higher than what that performance showed. And let's give Wakefield a hell of a lot of credit. You know, Darryl Powell, post-match, when I spoke to him for 5 minutes, he was really pleased with those effort-based areas, the fact that they were fronting up physically. And I think we all said, you know, Matty Staunton, Cameron Scott, Jake Truman, they just look like players reborn. Yeah. Hood out of dummy half. The line speed, you know, we saw it more than once in that first half, just how quick Wakefield were moving the ball and able to capitalise on those defensive frailties from Castleford. Have you spoken to Danny after that game, Craig? Obviously, he was very honest in the post-match press conference. You know, he says there's a lot of room for improvement. And, you know, sometimes these kind of first 80 minutes of the season, they're good shocks to the system, if that makes sense.
I haven't spoke to him, to be honest, briefly, which hopefully will get better today. We spoke to Danny Wilson after the game. Joe were there on my own. We had a good chat with Danny. If you based it like form, what Leeds did to Wakey in first half an hour in the first thing was so dominant. I thought Leeds could have put a big score on them if they kept the leads. That form's gone through. It's only pre-season. Matty Peets just rang me. I'm sure Matty's laughing his head off. I was thinking of him walking in going, yeah, I'll give Leeds loads of... Ryan's just arrived, so Ryan will tell you. He'd said, hey, lads, give Leeds loads of props. Wait till the first game of the season, we'll hammer them. No, that's what happens in rugby league. But based on what I saw, Danny would have to be worried. He would have to be worried. If he isn't, he's probably in the wrong job. If Mags hadn't gone back and gone, right, it's only first game, we're going to get better, which it will. His only job, he told me, that he can only prepare what that team's there to the best of his capability. The rest is more or less saying it's up to them.
Yeah, the players.
But then there's going to come a time in 4 or 5 weeks when Danny Maggs looks at Danny Wilson or he looks at his, and one of them's going to go, it's on you, because if they're not good enough, and let's all talk honestly, based on what we saw, and that's all you can talk about. There's a few to come in, but based on what we saw, you're bottom 4.
Correct.
And you're fighting it all year.
Yeah.
And that is not being rude. I've got lads there. I love the club. I love everything about it. That's where you're looking at. I think they will make moves because they've got to. I think the quality's got to come higher. I think Powley would have saw enough to think they're not going to be at bottom 4. I think about 5 people yesterday said to me, I think they could finish 7th, 8th, and that's. I thought there were bits where they'd finish higher because. Even watching Leeds yesterday, how much good ball Leeds got. One thing about Wakey, if they get good ball, they'll score. If you were there at the game, if they, again, Ryan's here, Powley's coaches for that. There's going to be that many options with ball. Like if you get to field position with them, they're going to get you. I love the way Lino was sinking in and True were playing off the back of him, which is what probably True he needs. I've never seen Lino go as close to the line. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, he's committing loads of defenders. But I think Cass, yeah, certainly, 100% Mick, I'm sure what lads will say. You've got to look at what is there a period as a coach where you go, okay, now we've had 4, you just said there, Hull, and then they play Bradford. I think there's a Doncaster game in between, I don't know. Will there be a period after the trial? We call these trial games. So after the trial games and you've looked after people with testimonials. Danny probably didn't want any testimonial games, probably thinking, oh, that's the last thing I need. He'll be working on the squad. I think there have been some bollockings at half time. I think there was some. Well, Joe said a good thing. What you told me, they said we didn't know why Danny Corey didn't get many minutes. And somebody must have said, Danny said to the squad who started, not good enough, lads, you're starting again. And I think he made a point of saying, you get on there and front up here.
Yeah.
So ultimately, only thing I ain't got the answer for Mick is, when you say Cass bottom 4, Wakey top 8, unless you've got the chairman here, we don't know what. Are Cass happy with that?
Oh, well, I'll just put in quickly. There's no way on earth anybody surely can think that Cass cannot be in the bottom four. Wakey's aim, their chairman spoke openly at the game, and yes, there might be a bit of gamesmanship, but their target is 8th, which is technically top of the bottom four, isn't it? They would love to have a little bit at the top 6, I'm sure. Do I think, and I'm the epitome of someone who don't like to read into pre-season friendlies, do I think Castleford have any chance of challenging the top 6? Absolutely not. I just don't see how they possibly can. Do I think Castleford almost need things to unravel at Salford? Yeah, I do. Do they need Hull FC just to not get it together and not hit their stripes? I do, because otherwise I think it could be a really, really miserable season. Whereas Wakey is a positive place. There's a vibe about it. They're off the back of a good year. And I do believe that they won't get dragged into that bottom section, even though they're still bookies' favourites to come bottom.
Wakey.
Wakey and Cass, I think, are joint favourites to come bottom. I still think Wakey have got potential because it's going to be a much more positive place. And if they can ride that positivity and have that, like most teams who get promoted will try and keep that vibe going. I don't think they've an awful lot to worry about. And even before that friendly, because the last thing I'll say on Gailey's power of going into a room and everybody loving him and lifting everything around, those Wakey players will have wanted to perform, deliver for Gailey. And I believe they had more motivation to go at full tilt in that game than possibly the Castleford players. But before that game and after that game, I'm very worried about Castleford, because I just look at their middle and I look at their depth, and I don't think they've got as much as nearly everybody else, if not everybody else.
Joe?
Like you said, I think the game on Friday showed, there's a gap there. Like you said, the Wakey thing. Who else would you put in there? You'd put in maybe Hull if they get a couple of injuries. They've made some 34-year-old plus signings, haven't they? So if they get injured, then you'd probably be worried. But otherwise, you probably need Salford. I think they need to make some signings. I think they need to get a bit of good spirit around the club. I think a lot of the fans were calling for signings, and I think we're always nervous when they start saying, make signings, very fan way to think, but I think it showed that they at least need some depth, that whether them middles at their age now, I think other than Muzzy, the middle pack averaged about 33, legs were getting a bit slower, they were getting tired. I think they need some injection of something in that middle pack. I'd be looking for a few props, whether that's overseas or I don't think the fans would be happy with, like, say, champ players, but maybe they just need to fill out with some good, solid champ players and just add that bit of extra depth. But I think they need to make some moves. I'd be worried if there's no moves made, but otherwise, there were bits. I think Janazi, they call him DJ, his kicking game was phenomenal, to be fair to him. Like I said, them new Aussies, I think in training they all say Zaxini's been awesome. So it's hard to judge them Aussies in the first ever game of that cold.
That first 4 months. When they've not seen this weather.
Cold, rain and things. So whether they're saying there is something to come there, Mick, which, like I said, if you look...
I'm not writing him off. I'm just saying he was exposed. You could say...
I'm not saying in the game, yes, he didn't have a good game. I agree with you, but they're saying there is something actually to come. They're all raving about him, to be honest. So I think, if they make some move, and then obviously I'll give the Show Me Young lads a shout out that when Fletch and Jensen come on, and Akeem and Jacob Ball and the other, they're probably 2 years away from it, but there's 2 years away from actually having a good core of some good young lads there. Jensen's kicking game from last year come on even more, did a few where he missed the fullback and got the yardage. Fletch broke through for 40 yards and had an outstanding game. Fletch is nearly ready now, like bang ready. So I think there's something to come, but they need to fill out quick so you can get that transition right, because if not, like I said, the fans might not give up, but the fans might be in trouble by the time they get there.
Can I just add on to what you said there, Joe? Because I just spoke to someone on the way, and I think the similarities between Cass of this year and Hull of last year look evident, where those young players look as good and as exciting as any in the league. And you think of what Logan Moy did last year, where they're so exciting and they're so good, but the team they're going into can't really support them. So the highlight for a lot of Hull fans last year was probably Lewis Martin and Logan Moy being exciting and giving fans something to cheer. I feel Cass could be heading for a season where the biggest things the fans have got to cheer on is when they see these young future prospects coming on and being brilliant, but they're not a team that can...
If you told the Cass, if you told Magsy and all them that, though, I think they'd have an heart.
Well, I know, and that's what my concern is, that with the Wiggins and the Saints, when
I think
they
that was their year last
the,
year. Fletch played last year. Jensen played last year.
But
I feel like if they have another year of that, then yes, they'd probably be more worried than.
Well, I think put it this way: they could end up playing a lot more because the quality. But my worry is they're not going to have the team around them to integrate them gradually, and they're always going to be up against it. Coming onto the field when they're up against it are 20 points down, and it's going to be tough. But I'm looking for a positive, and my positive is there's some young quality players, and they might be turning to them by halfway point.
Mick, on finishing on that one is we can't jump the gun. It's first game of the season. Ryan will tell us more what that feels like as a player of being your first game of the season, and should you judge your people on that? Historically, I suppose it'd be split. Danny, Brett and Scott have got a big job on their hands.
Massive.
But if Danny's going to be a top coach, which we all think he is, he should be thriving. He should be. You've got to love it that much that 7 days a week you live in this. You've got to be going to watch games yesterday thinking what Joe's just said. Can I pick a player up from here? Can I pick a player up from here? That's what you've got to do. That's what Ferguson's just done his latest thing. They reckon he were top coach in the world, and he's sat in a garden for a 17-year-old kid trying to sign him. That's what I believe that you have to do, or don't be a coach. So I think the challenge is on. I think the chairman, I feel sorry for the chairman in a way that if he's come into it and people say, Ryan lives in Cass, again, this will be interesting. We've probably said that the Cass fans have got I think they have got expectations. I don't think Joe hinted there. I don't think they're going in and going,
waste the year.
We'll finish. I think they'll be thinking, well, I'm awaking, and I think that'll be where they are. The chairman's got a hell of a job, hasn't he? He's had to put. I think that if it's right, he's put $1 million in already. He's injected another 300, whatever. He's sat there thinking, I've took this club over. I've already put 1.34 million in, and we might finish it bottom. Thing is, so I think you'll see more this week because Hull are more on. If we don't know what Hull are going to do we?
No.
They've got experienced heads, but if Hull put 30-40 on Cass after what happened at Wakey in that 40 minutes, forget about the rest. Yeah. We just wanted to see them young kids, and they changed it. So no one don't ever judge a second half when this 55
it was all
changed.
on that first 40 minutes.
It was that first 40 minutes, 100%. We saw Leeds do it against Wakey, and we saw Leeds do it again yesterday against Wigan. They were very, very strong in all areas of that game. They're physically a different team. I think, will they go 4 week and then bring players in? 100%. I think Danny's respectful enough as a coach. I think he said to the lads, you've all got a blank canvas. You're all going to play pre-season. Then he'll probably go to Danny Wilson and he'll have to go to chairman and say, right, probably going to need another 300 grand off you, my son, because he's got to go. And I've always said this, you shouldn't feel bad as a coach doing that, because your job is a custodian of Castleford Tigers. So that means you're going to do the best for that. If you met them calls, the big boys there met them calls. I'll be honest with you, I'd have made it quicker. We wouldn't be having this conversation. If I was CEO of that club, it would not be going to this far.
Just one final point, because we have got Ryan joining us.
Do you want to pause there? Do you want to pause?
No.
Sam, do you want to pause? No. Do you want to pause? And Rocky, you get in and I'll swap.
First,
I'll just try.
What do you need?
just yeah.
Well, just piss on. Go up to the side of the thing here and let
Craig,
otherwise this.
see that car, green one?
You stop that.
Yeah, we'll start again. Just one final point on Castleford, Craig. You mentioned the 1.3 million investment. That is not in the team. So Castleford, to get the grade A, they've had to put £500,000 in. They've done what Derek and Matt Ellis have done. They've basically pumped in £500,000, disguised it as sponsorship, as investment, so they can become a grade A. That's what Derek's done. That's what Matt Ellis has done. That is what Bradford are going to do to get a grade A next year. So when you say 1.3, Castleford
Well,
fans...
no, sorry. Forget about 1.3 feet.
Yeah.
I'm plucking that out of the hands. I'm plucking that.
But
He'd have had to put a major
for
investment.
for fans, when you talk about investment, it's not in the team. It's similar to Michael Carter and John Minard's at Wakefield.
Yeah, good
and
point.
when I was at Wakefield on Friday, I'm looking at Castleford and that squad and that team, and then you look at what's been invested into the ground. Like you say, they've had to put seats on the terrace in, the new big screen. There's a lot of investment away from the team, and this is why I genuinely worry for Castleford for this year.
Yeah.
They are going to struggle. They're probably going to be bottom two. They might go to Wadsell in a fortnight in front of the BBC cameras on Sunday the 9th of February and get beaten in the Odsell mud.
But do you know what? On a serious note,
And that's the worry. Their season just never gets going.
I can't think of a worse fixture for Cass early on than to have to go to Odsell, who were, as we know, in the mud, small pitch, the size of your players, the money you've spent. That is by no means a guaranteed win for Cass. That's going to be a horrendously tough game. And I really hope they beat Bradford for numerous reasons. One being, if they don't, there's going to be serious pressure on by the fans because they will not accept losing to Bradford in a Challenge Cup game. No matter what excuses, what reasons, it will be unacceptable.
Well, the mood amongst the Cass fans already is, if you look on their social media posts, we're now playing Bradford at Odsell. Pretty much, I'd say a good 70% is with no chance we're going to get beat.
Well, that's not true.
So they're already...
That's not true.
But it's
You look at the comments.
It's a banana
I'm
split.
telling you now. Well... That's it, Joe. Go, close the door. 10 minutes in the sin bin. Yeah, sadly we've had to sin bin Joe Harrison, but we have brought Ryan Hampshire on. So Ryan, welcome to the show. Just to give you a quick where we are, we have discussed Luke Gale, and obviously it was his testimonial following his retirement at the end of the season on Friday, Wakefield against Castleford. Craig placed Luke Gale potentially as one of the Super League greats in the top 10, top 13. We had a bit of a healthy debate about it. I personally thought it probably would be in my top 30, not quite, if you were going to call it the ultimate Super League team. What are your thoughts when you've played against Luke Gale and where
Played with him as well, Cass.
and played with him, against him, and where ultimately you feel he, falls in the sport as a player, as a legend, as an icon?
Well, I played with him in 2016, and that was when he's before his best year when he did with Man of Steel 2017. So that year, 2016, I think he had like 30 odd assists, maybe 40 assists, and that's when you really saw the transformation of all the hard work he's put in. And then he's obviously gone on to win Challenge Cup and made a lot of appearances, a lot of points. So I think he's had a great career. I'm not sure with the question you're saying, top 13 of Super League, halfbacks or...
We channeled it into halfbacks and overall. Where would you see him as? Where's his legacy going to be left?
Well, I think there's definitely an argument for top 20 halfbacks of British halfbacks, yeah. I'm not sure if he gets in that 13. I think there's obviously players like Danny Maguire, Burrow, Sean Long, who's there for the starting halves, but he's definitely considered in the top 20, I'd say, yeah.
There we go. I had him in as forget halfbacks, as a player. I think he'd definitely be in the top 50 and pushing on the top 30.
Right. So my second one was when I said if you had to pick and I was biased, so I am biased. If I pick the best 6 and 7 for Super League Dream Team, I'm picking against anybody Danny Gailey together. I think Gailey's peak and Danny's. Well, Danny did it overall, but Gailey's peak I think were as good as any peak I've seen for 3 years. I think from 15 to 18, I thought that was,
it was
when he played for England and Cass. You played with, obviously, you were brought up playing with George Williams, who people would probably say would be a top 10 into contention. You played with probably 15 other halfbacks.
Yeah.
Where would Gailey mark in the ones you played with and against? Where would he be?
I think, in terms of that, I think Danny Maguire cements that number 6 spot of all time. I've played with some unreal halfbacks. 2 I've just played with last year, Bevan and Harry Smith. George Williams, Blake Green, Matty Smith. I've played with some top 1, so it's like...
Where would he be then? Go on then. But
top 20, like I said, top 20.
No, compared to them, where would you...
Well, I think Gale is a there's different types of halfbacks in there. There's halfbacks what play on the ball, which was Gale. He didn't have a strong running game, but his kicking, his communication, the way he led the team around, the way he played on ball. Halfbacks is different to if you compare him to a Bevan French, where Bevan French's creativity and his running game and his off the cuff and that kind of stuff. He's probably similar, Luke Gale, to Harry Smith in terms of they have to play on the ball because they are the most dangerous when they're on the ball. So the amount of space he created for other players around him, I think it's just a different type of halfback like he was. But he's been a great number 7 for me.
Yeah. And we spoke about player's personality. He is a player's player with that you can have a laugh, a joke with him. He's got that
very serious though, isn't he? Very serious player at the same time. He demands a lot, doesn't he? He demands a lot from around you. Like if you do something dodgy, he'll say, "What the fuck? Like what are you doing?" That kind of thing. But he does encourage the best out of you. So players have different attributes, and that's one what he had strongly. Is he demanded a lot of people around him.
Greatly,
fantastic answer. No, I think that's. I think that goes coincide with the great debate. I think if it goes out there, it'll be interesting how people, the fans, see him. From I suppose the cast fans are going to be a bit biased. I think you'd probably get Hull fans who might go, no chance. It'll be interesting. What?
Can I ask you a question on Gale? I always think that the saddest thing in Gale's career is that it didn't work out at Leeds for longer because the period that Leeds have had over the last few years until Brodie arrived of the half-back problems and the character that Gale is in training and in the dressing room as a leader and a character. I strongly believe if Leeds had kept hold of him, he could have brought so much, and arguably even if I played devil's advocate and some of his critics were saying he might have been slowing down on the field a little bit, which I don't necessarily agree with. What he could have brought to Leeds over the last few years, or going back a few years, I thought would have been massive for the club. So what I want to ask you is, in my head, I can't imagine anyone better in a change room and at training than Gale. Who are, am I right? And who else that you've played with are those characters that can change an environment like that and improve an environment?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised that Leeds let him leave at that time. I thought that's what they needed. And I don't know what went on, why he left and that kind of stuff, but I was pretty shocked at that. I think that he was the one player that they should have kept. Because like I said, he demands a lot around of his players. He's smart, he's experienced, and he's still a good player at that time.
Yeah.
So I think they personally should have kept him. But, Gale's gone on to other things and he's had a great year at Wake. He had a good testimonial. He's gone into a coaching role. Yeah. So personally for him, it might have been the best thing. You don't know how to feel that, but I think for Leeds, definitely.
Who else is like that?
2 seconds, right? 2 seconds. I'll answer that. Ryan's just said there. I don't know what happened. I do. So it's certainly not Luke's fault. Probably your answer is because he was that dominant. Rich wanted to be that dominant. So the clash happened after.
Oh, okay.
So the clash happened, and it were two personalities. And Rich, I think Rich said it. If the truth be known, said, "Here, listen, I'm the boss here. You're and Gale, the lads were looking towards Gale as if saying, no, he's the boss." So I think there was that clash. I think Rich had always thought Gale were very, when they were putting systems in and putting things in, Gale would be like.
Yeah.
And Pablo said it, to be fair, we were all there, wasn't it, the other day. Pablo said, he's not easy to coach. He will challenge you you laughed as soon as you come on.
Yeah.
I think Rich Agar being a young coach, a new coach at Leeds pressuring Gale saying, what are you doing that for? What are you doing that for? That probably when they clashed, Ryan said it the best I've heard. He said that he was the one player that couldn't afford to clash. But inevitably, because he was that player, he probably had to clash with egos and it happened in 24 hours. They were a car park job.
Yeah.
So sat in a car park and saying, I've just been told to leave training. What do I do? And you're like, as an agent, you pick that phone up and you go, I'm trying to think what to do. And I'm trying to phone Leeds to say, how bad is it from your end? Because Luke's only told me his end, and I'm going to trust Luke anyway. But their end, Luke had been, I don't know what word you'd use, but he'd been whatever. And it all ended up. And then, honestly, within 48 hours, it was worse than you thought. It just went.
I think there's authority of that as well. You've got to obviously respect what the coach says, and coach has the non-negotiables of what. I think maybe Gale could have gone, what about us doing this, and maybe coming up with a plan together rather than maybe if it's been blown out of proportion, let's say.
Yeah, Luke said he did say that.
Yeah.
He thought he was being constructive.
Yeah.
And instead of the other one.
I think like that with Gale, like he just wants the best for the team, doesn't he? You've had, players, but some players don't care whatsoever, like selfish, but he wants the best for the team because he wants to win. So
coming from a good place,
yeah. Coming from a good place, I can imagine.
Ryan, on yourself personally, for those that are watching this, give us an injury update, where you're at, how tough it's been, and what are your sort of goals, expectations for this new season in 2025?
Yeah, so I had a pretty tough year last year. I was at Wigan, the club, the team, individually had the best year yet ever, and I had my worst of my career. So I picked up an injury late April. I started the season very well, very consistent with games, building momentum, got a few man of matches and that kind of stuff. And I fell on my knee awkwardly, and I did a grade 2 PCL, but it wasn't one what was right, you're out for this amount of time. It was, my knee was stable. I had a lot of strength on my knee, a lot of reaction, good tests, and basically the specialist said you'll not be out, you'll be back to full fitness in 12 weeks, but you can train, play, pain management. I played at 6 weeks, week before Wembley. Thought, you know what, give it a go, try and get a team, see what happens. Had my worst game in a long time, dropped ball over the line, and did the exact same injury at the beginning of that game, and ever since then it was just a spiral down, and I struggled massively with this knee injury. I shouldn't have played. I know Craig told me not to play a few times, and I even said, look, I can't play, and it got to a point where I was like, I'm just going to have to get on with it because I'm missing out on finals, I'm missing out on big games, and that was probably the worst thing I did was playing and training. I should have just, I'm not well enough, I'm not playing. Train, get myself fit, and then finish the year strong, which I didn't. And then it got to the game against Leeds, and it was probably a game too far. Probably should have pulled out that week. I was really struggling with my knee, and I went into that game just nowhere near. It was off back of so we had to play 3 games in 9 days because we had a catch-up game. So we ended up playing Thursday, Tuesday, Saturday. I got through the Thursday, Tuesday game, and then got to the Saturday. I was like, my body was like kind of run down, and I ended up breaking my arm that game as well, which
was that the catch-up game involving League?
Yeah, League in between, yeah. And then we played Leeds a few days later, and I had probably a worst game in a long time. I just, probably at the end of my tether with it, like my knee just couldn't cope, and I should have pulled out in that warm-up. I had a few things going in the warm-up, and I was like, I should have pulled out, but maybe an ego thing says play, and but I ended up making a few errors in that game, and I put my team under pressure, which, looking at that point, if I knew I was going to put my team under pressure, then I would have gone, I'm not going to play. It was tough, and then I broke my arm in that game, and I've only just been given the clear 6 months later. So I've got rehab now for 8 weeks. I can train now. So I had my knee fixed in November. That's all good. I'm starting running. I've started sprinting last week, so I'm bringing my load up running wise. And then my arm, I got given the clear last week to start rehab for 8 weeks, or as long as I feel comfortable. I could probably join in skills training, but just no contact at the minute.
Leave the rest till after, don't we? Yeah, we're going to get him one-on-one so we can hit him. Ask him the Wakey Cass situation, what he thinks. He's played for both clubs. He lives. What would they expect? Ask him the expectations, what come from the.
Yeah, Ryan. If we're doing it with the Cass and Wakefields fan, Rocky. What? I don't know if you were there on Friday or if you've seen or heard about the result. Obviously, you've heard a little bit of our analysis, but obviously Wakefield literally flawed, cleaned up with the Championship last year. Castleford, bottom 4, very difficult season. Obviously, the expectations going into this new season seem to be good. Prior to that game, where it's all about stabilising for Wakefield, potentially having a tilt at the playoffs, but ultimately, not being in that bottom 4. For Castleford, I think they probably thought Danny Maguire, some of the players that have signed, we might have a go at the playoffs. Post that game, Wakefield putting 30 points on Castleford, it's almost a little bit of a reverse in that the Wakefield fans, after seeing a really exciting attacking display from Jake Truman, I thought was absolutely immaculate for Wakefield, and how him and Mason Lino were both sinking off each other. It's almost like Wakefield's expectations have all of a sudden rose, and they might be thinking we might make the six, with a run of lucky with the injuries. Whereas for Castleford, it is almost very doom and gloom, and from their supporters, what you read on social media, I know that's only a small percentage of the fan base. It's almost like Castleford are in crisis after game one.
Well, I watched the highlights, so it was interesting watching them. I thought Wakey looked good with the ball. I thought Mason Lino played on the ball very well. I think that's the way to go for Wakey. Played Mason Lino on ball, Truman off of him. Truman looked good. But I felt like Cass gave him too much time on the ball. Wakefield coming onto the ball very flat because they was getting ruck speed, and then Castleford team were very passive in defence. So Truman were just looking eyes up thinking, right, I can just go flat here. Catch the ball flat, dig into the line to Jowett or Mason Lino, vice versa. And they're just creating momentum and then just taking the chances. So I don't think they should overreact. I think Castleford got a friendly this week to put things right.
All FC.
I think the first game of pre-season is always the toughest because you come from training and you've been overconfident. Well, you're confident. You go into a game and it's just not what it seems to be. Like last year, we played Wake in our first friendly and we got beat when the lights got turned off at 60 minutes. But we got beat by Wake in the first.
I remember it well. Yeah.
They started very well, and they had their game before that on Boxing Day. So, and then obviously the season Wigan went on to add. Like yesterday, I'm sure Wigan had a lot to learn from yesterday, but they've only had players in training for a week, so the first game's always the toughest. But yeah, it looked good for Wakey. I think a good season for Wakey would be 8th.
Yeah.
Because they're still in that rebuilding phase. Probably a good cup run, 8th. Develop the younger players. Develop the players who've never played Super League there as well.
Yeah.
And maybe another good season for Jowett and build on that momentum. He's played Super League before, but it'd be interesting to see what he can do now. Coming from that championship. Keeping fit, I think they've got a decent chance of making that 8. But if things go wrong, then that's when the questions will start to be asked. Because in Super League, you won't get all that momentum every week.
Yeah.
It'll be tough to keep it, won't it? And once you have to ride that tough wave, it's then who's going to step up.
Yeah.
But it's good to see. I don't know. So you said Truman played well.
Yeah. What would be Cass's expectations, right? You live. What fans?
I live in Wakey, not Cass. So.
Sorry. I apologize. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you'll know better than you'll know what they're thinking. What will Cass fans? Because I find that really interesting.
Yeah, I think because of that them years they had with Powley and Gale in there, they've been quite spoiled, haven't they? And then the last couple of years, it's gone a little bit downhill. But I'm not sure what the Cass fans will be expecting, to be honest. I have a few Cass fans on Facebook and stuff like that, and they're a little bit worried. We see updates saying, "Oh, Cass got battered today" and all that kind of stuff. But yeah,
would that be the ambition of the club? Well, I think Jimmy said it earlier. Maybe would that be the ambition of the club? What is expectations of Cass?
Yeah.
I find that fascinating. Where you've got like first time in 10 years, Mr. Gledel has come into this room last 3 weeks and he's bouncing at Bradford because he thinks the promised land's coming. So Mick's I'm not having a go at you there. I'm being honest.
I do this show independently.
It's totally true what you just said.
Anyway, Mick's been happier because he sees it just before you come in. He says, "I'm telling you," and I love that. If a fan don't think that, you're a Wakey fan, and I think Jimmy or Joe said you must be buzzing at the moment because you get there, corporate's full, stadium's amazing. People who haven't been to see new stadium were saying to me, "Oh my God!" Everybody were there. Were like, "How good it was." What do we need? A load of good news coming out of Cast, or do you feel there is any? We've got Martin took over, the new management took over. The great Danny Maguire has come and committed. He got 4 or 5 offers, and he's committed to Cast as the first team coach. That name should carry you so much. But I think the fans. I don't know if Joe told me up my arms, some fans, but they're like somebody's gone. Poor old Brett's coming delayed, putting these new systems defence, and somebody's gone, well, that fucking, we're supposed to have best defensive team coaching game and we've conceded on debut. Yeah. And I was thinking, God, they are not going to allow anybody. Yeah. Social media does not allow you any hiding place, does it? So
I found out that this year, me.
I do worry. You know why we worry? And I suppose this is me passionately worrying from Danny being one of my best friends and the club being right close to me is how do they get some, positive, massively positive in there if these results in next 4 to... Have you seen the opening 4 games?
I have.
They've got Bradford in Challenge Cup before that, so...
Is that Bradford as well?
Yeah.
That's a great tie. That's a great tie.
Great tie
That's going to be
Bradford.
absolutely
Bradford
fantastic.
yeah.
To see where Bradford are against, as we know, they beat Huddersfield 28-14 quite convincingly the other weekend.
I've seen Bradford's team and it's quite a stacked team, isn't it? Especially the back five. If I was Bradford against Cass, I'd go 5 drives and a kick in their own half, use the back 5 and then maybe a middle, play it safe until you get down at their end, and then use your big boys, just direct.
Well, Noble will do that.
Yeah.
No offence to Nobby, that's his DNA.
Yeah.
You might understand this, Ryan, as a player, but what I've noticed with Bradford since your Franklin Pele, Eben Skur is just absolutely reborn under Brian Noble. You look at your George Tafuas, your Wonga Blakes, your Guy Armitages, your Edges, your Jaden Hockenballs. There's a lot of Super League, NRL. There's a lot of physicality there. Yeah. What I've noticed similar with yesterday against Doncaster, because as a coach, you kind of mitigate, you want to get on top and get that momentum, but because of the physical dominance of Bradford's pack, they're getting good ball 2 minutes into the game, and then you've got Donaldson beating 4 Doncaster defenders and going over. And that's obviously, from a playing point of view, you're up against that. What do you think that does psychologically? Because I don't want to be too harsh on Carlisle and Doncaster, but, pretty much from that first sort of 2-3 minutes, they were beaten. They were gone.
Yeah, I think for Cass, I'd play Westy 13. I'd play midfield play through Westy 13. I know what
Rowan was out, so big plus. The plus is Rowan might be back.
Yeah. Oh, so that's good. That gives him that extra thing. I think
and that's a nice narrative for Rowan coming back to the club that made him and developed him as a Bradford lad.
He wants to have a big game.
And you never mentioned Bradford. You go on.
Play Westy 13. Play through him, especially midfield. And then just get twos from other middles around him, just to create ruck speed. That's if I was, they've got a good backline Cass, haven't they?
Do you know what, right? We're probably taking. I take Stanley after the game and I put for 15 minutes. They were into it and they were like rabid dogs. The Papua New Guinea lads come on and suddenly they were reckless. Moise were putting in. They were reckless. I liked it. I said to Danny, you probably don't want to apologise for being that. I think if you got one chance this year, is that you just let the dogs go. And if them lads are flying in, and I'm gonna, it was like they laid one wakey player out, then they went for another, and then somehow it all come back. They all were like, "Ooh, it's a pre-season friendly." I'd be like, "No, double the tempo."
But you're on the edge of suspensions.
That's your problem. But
this year, more
if
than ever.
you'll know, you said. I've heard players of it last. I remember going to Cass is never easy. All the players don't like. I'm serious. Especially Lancashire clubs used to say they'd rather go Leeds. A lot of them than go Cass. They used to say, "Oh, it's always this is what they say." Even back from the day. And I probably think Cass have to make that the biggest fortress you've ever seen. And forget about being nice. I'd be saying, no, we're going to come here. We're going to kick the absolute things out of you, and we're not going to relentlessly keep up on you. Because Ryan's on about Westy playing off Westy. No offence. I don't think they've got the leg speed to play off Westy. What you're on about, people making punchy lines. I don't think they've got the players. Joe's playing. Well, Shomi's playing young Danakoro. He's a bit different. So he's 6'4", he's athletic, he's got a fast twitch. But to ask him to go into that role is impossible in Super League within this year because he's got his own development to happen. So when you're saying Westy play off Westy, I'd probably question that and say, who would be running off Westy? Alex Mellor, what I thought were absolutely outstanding. His levels are right there.
Yeah.
They've got Louis Sini to come back in, they've got Rowan to come back in. But the options in that middle, as Joe said at the start, I think are probably 2 or 3 to bring in, right? Something needs to happen.
Yeah, my concerns about Cass are 5% that friendly and 95% their middles. That's my worry with Cass, because it's got to be so tough in it without that depth and without those younger, punchier middles. But
so would you say sign more middles for Cass? You'd say
I assume they've been trying. That's my concern as well. You hear a lot at the moment about who's available. They took a few, in inverted commas, gambles on overseas players last year. I mean, Back 9 came on or started and looked really lively, didn't he? Really lively. And they're probably going to have to hope that this year their signings work and hit the floor running, and because they can't afford for them not to. That's how I'm viewing it.
Yeah.
Ryan, your thoughts? We're in this sort of IMG era as a player. You're the first player we've had on for a while. As a player, do you understand all the IMG stuff and what it's trying to achieve?
I don't understand it all, but I understand what it's trying to achieve. I think it's holding clubs accountable of making sure that they get certain parts of the house in order, improve social media and generate revenue. And I personally think it's good for the game. I'd franchise the Super League, maybe go to 14 teams and franchise it, but then it comes with financial. Have clubs got enough money to do that, and is enough money in the game to fund teams to do that? I don't know how much Sky money is and that kind of stuff is now, but I think it will be good. Yeah.
More importantly, Mick, I think if you ask Ryan, he's just spent 2 years at Wigan and he hasn't been Wigan since he was a kid. What's the gap like when you leave a waking cast to go to Wigan? To be honest,
it's ridiculous.
That's what scares me.
It's ridiculous.
Give us some examples. Give the viewers some examples.
Yeah, coach hours.
Being kind, of course, to Wakefield and Castleford.
Well, obviously Wakefield's got a new stadium and that now it's revamped and it's like every person you talk to around Wakefield.
And again, that's a good point of IMG.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If Michael Carter, John Minards hadn't invested in that stand, I know there was borrowing money and whatever, and Matt Ellis will still be
it's not digging against him, but it's just.
But yeah,
I'm on about even in franchise era. You're saying a franchise, but then he's just been Wigan and let people know what facility-wise, what would the gap be like?
It's ridiculous. Like for one fan base, Wigan's obviously got a massive fan base stadium. They've got their own training around the old. You've been.
Yeah,
Robin Park.
Robin Park.
I've been to Robin Park. I must confess.
Yeah, they've just got a new gym.
You can see why England and Sean Wayne bases England there.
Exactly.
State of the art up there with the NRL.
Yeah, like the Wigan training ground, Robin Park. They actually have it's not closed off. Like they have people actually coming in and doing different stuff there. So everything's there. All the offices are upstairs. The community team's there. They have young kids coming to doing summer camps there. So they'll just be there while you're training. So it's very kind of
communal. Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
open. Yeah. Obviously the finances is a lot different. Just every little detail you can go into, Wigan nail it. So I want to go in for one thing, so before the grand final, Wigan went, and you always go the day before the grand final just to get familiar with the stadium, and this is probably from Matty more than anything. Visualise being on the pitch, visualise where you're sitting in the changing rooms, and didn't do that last year. Didn't go to actually look at the stadium, and I think that's a massive advantage. So we can look at little details just to gain the advantage, but the more little details you do, the bigger gap it creates.
I don't know if I got a video. We were doing some kick chases on pitch.
Yeah.
I knew it. I didn't say it because I got.
Or it might have been kick chase or just visualising certain patterns of the game. So Matty might ask a question, say,
where all the lads were screaming, Matty and them were screaming to get the noise or something, trying.
It basically saying you're at this point of field, Luke Thompson, what are you going to do from here? So everyone's just visualising their job on the pitch the day before the game.
Wow.
And Willie Peters didn't do that with O'Kare.
I don't think they went to see grounded there. I think it's just for players just to get.
Yeah.
He might have thought that's the best thing. He might have experienced not doing that.
It gives you an idea of what Matty Pete's thinking with that attention to detail.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of little things what just separates the gap massively. I don't know. Have you any questions how they work certain ways? Even training's different. They don't do a team run. They do a really intense session 2 days before a game, which I really enjoyed. You do an intense session for about 24 minutes, so you have 4 box of 6, 3 box of 6, whatever, and you'll train for that. But it's a bit of a murder ball, so it's constantly in play the ball. There's no breaks whatsoever. So it's a ball goes in touch, a ball or not. Different scenarios, goal line defence, that kind of stuff. So the attention to detail is just completely.
And even in a salary cap world, but we all think that salary cap works. Then you go to Wigan, they might be taking 800 grand more on marquee than the Cass, the Wakes, the Salfords, the whatever. We obviously know your quality of juniors coming in at Wigan. You stay every year, then all of a sudden you're left, and next one come, you go, oh my God.
Yeah.
So December, he'd be as good as what we're going to see, I think. Yeah, even yesterday, he wasn't fully at it, but some of his carries are just, he comes on. That wouldn't happen at other clubs, would it, where you're looking and there's 6 kids who are going to be first team with the next 18. You saw Smithers in them, what?
Exactly. I think Junior's only 20 years old, and his improvement over the last year is ridiculous. Like every game is improving, and they've even swapped the back rows now, like Junior and Farrell. Farrell's on right, Junior's on left, because Junior just seems to defend and play better on the left. He's just improving. He's even bigger now. He's getting bigger every year. Like every time I see him, he's just bigger. He's really, really good, and he's just learning so quick.
And is there a feel for the humans, Ryan, at Wigan? Do they, because I've always thought Wigan embrace that more than other clubs. Like, is it like we want to get these kids in?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Obviously, like, there's Zach Eckersley, who had a great year last year. Jack Farman come through. Jacob Douglas, he'll have a good year next year. He's a very athletic player.
I was impressed with Harvey Makin, who was at Bradford, who literally, he was playing some of the more established Bradford squad members out last year.
Yeah, Harvey Makin's got a lot of improvement.
A lot of potential on Harvey Makin. Definitely one.
Harvey Hill, 20 years old, a world champion last year. Tom Forward, grand final winner. Just the level of the young'uns go through. And the thing is, when you're in that squad, if a young'un comes through, no matter how old he is, you just trust him so much. Like,
that's a great word, isn't it?
You just look at him like just the same player. You're just equal, yeah. Like, you just trust him so much.
It's huge.
Ryan, you've worked under so many coaches. How does Matty P? Obviously, everyone's different. Everyone's got the qualities. Obviously, Darryl at Castleford when you were there. How does Matty P compare? What's special about Matty P?
Just like I said, like attention to detail in everything they do. But there's not just him. He's got a good team around him, like Tom Silverwhite and Sean O'Loughlin, who's fresh through the game, and I think that's probably the youngest coaching staff in it.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, the youngest coaching staff and probably the most successful. So we just had the 4 wins last year, and they'll probably go on and win something again this year. So they're just so fresh in the game, and so they're so open to learning as well. So like, I think that's the thing. We'll go back to Rich Hagar and Luke Gale. Obviously, the conflicted a little bit. At Wigan, you have like discussions about coming up with a game plan. It wouldn't just be one, like we're doing this week. Whatever you say is not happening. So you'd have a meeting on the last session of the week before the game, just like the spine players. And Thomas Lullaby runs the attack, and they'll come in and go, "So what do you think this week, boys?" And then they'll come for the plan together. There'll obviously be non-negotiables of what you have to do, but you'll ask the players, Harry, what do you think we should do, kicking wise or scrum wise, or Bevan, what do you think we should do this? And it's all together, because you've got to realise that the world class players you've got, so you're learning off each other constantly, and you come with a plan together. So yeah, it's a lot very open to learning.
That's unique. That is unbelievable. I hope people understand what's just been said, because most coaches who don't trust the players, he's used the word trust. They were telling the halfback. I remember a lot of my halfbacks have always said, "Fuck me out. How would a props coach tell me where to put a fucking ball?" And they find it very frustrating. I think what he's saying there is that the input coming back there and listening, because the young coaches has used it, the young coaches, they're more open to listen more, whereas the old school coach, I mean, can you imagine saying to, the likes of, I'm going to say no, all of them, and saying, no, this is our game plan. But by the way, what do you think? Yeah. That's remarkable.
School, and what I find most impressive about Wigan, you speak to Mike Pete all the time. I've never spoken to him. As a neutral, or when I was younger, as someone who didn't like Wigan because of how they played, dirty Wigan, nasty Wigan, coaches who were out. Now, Matty Pete, you'd do well to find a fan who didn't find Matty Pete the most enjoyable coach to listen to after a game. He speaks so well, he's so honest, and it's no surprise we've got this respectful culture within the club, and they're doing things with a more modern approach. And now you throw in Bevan and Jay over the last few years, and I feel like that Wigan has changed so much. They used to be really good and really successful, and they did it in a certain way. Now they've got all boxes ticked. They're probably the most entertaining team to watch. They've got the most exciting player in the league to watch, who could be one of the best players we ever have in Super League. They've got a coach who's likeable. They've got this lovely culture. They're going to take some beating, aren't they, for the significant future with those and the training things. So, sorry, last thing you hear, I listen to a lot of the radio with Talk Sport, and it's always football. But Gary Neville's been banging on for years. But Man United have fallen so far behind off the field. It's no surprise that on the field they're struggling. Their training facilities have gone from being the best in the world to not even in top half in the Premier League. The stadiums, it's gone. You know, we're still hanging on there with the grand final, but it's gone, especially compared to the neighbours. And Wigan have got off the field nailed. They've got the youth nailed. They've got the mixture of tough players, yeah, and all that. And now they've thrown in a coach who just comes across as the coach that most players would probably want to play for. And it's just, they've got the whole package. More so, we used to bang on about Saints, didn't we, over the last few years, and rightly so. But to me, Wigan seem like they are an even better version of Saints.
The only thing I agree, that's great what you said there. The only thing I would, and I can say this more than Ryan because he might get shot, and I hope Matty takes this in the right manner, but Matty's brilliant at, but there's another side of Matty, and it's like, I love it. This is what makes him special. We've got this lovely Matty who everyone wants to play with, and afterwards, he's so respectful to the opposition. But believe me, inside there is a ticking tack. I've seen it. In fact, and I hope he takes this right, man. After the game yesterday, he texts me. I've said this to you before. And if I'd have said yesterday on phone, Leeds were good, he would have said, "Oh, whether," and I can feel it, right? So I would play a game of love, and I go, yeah, and I just played away from it. I thought, I'm not giving you one bit of motivation here. And he's a fantastic thing, but don't make a mistake. He had him as, remember, these lads had Matty as their youth coach. And he would be a different version of Matty, what they're seeing now, because they've seen Matty with mask off, and you can feel it. You can feel it. Matty would be somebody who won't cross. You'd say that, wouldn't you, Matt Ryan? He won't be somebody who you'd cross because he would go, I think he's mellowed, because I think Radlinski and the board have had to say, Matty, you can't be that same coach that, Smithies used to tell me stuff and they'd be like, you want fear of God. He won 9 junior or 10 junior grand finals.
He's a winner, isn't he?
But it's funny to know, because when we say about Ferguson, we've dropped it in, Fergie from the one who kicked Beckham with Cup and that, they were all scared of him. Them first 10 years, it was the fear of God.
So you're telling me something that I never knew. I never kind of knew this side to Matty P. I always had him as a no.
You can't survive at Wigan unless you've got that winning mentality.
No, I understand that, Jimmy, but
what I'm saying
I could
about
not
Matty
imagine Matty P going in and like Fergie did, smashing TVs up and kicking boots at players.
No, I don't say as far as that, but I tell you what, he's got some right substance, and I've seen him. And as I say, the one he gets me, I'm sure Ryan, Joe's seen a bit of it. He'll just drop one into you, and if you dare react to that, I'm telling you, it is a one. And again, I'll drop one. He'll say, "What do you think of him, Craig?" And it'll be a player, and straight away I start stuttering because I'm going, I know if I say this kid, he's going to say, "All right." And I'm telling you, John Bastien used to do it to me. John would say, I remember once saying to John, famous story, I said, Tony Tonks, he was playing Warrington, and I said, Tonka can play Super League. And he goes, "Oh, can he? Good player, is he, Craig?" And I said, yeah. I said, he's running through everybody. I went to game, Tonka got brought off after quarter of an hour reserve, Featherstone v. He were at Huddersfield, I tell you, Huddersfield reserves. He got his chance and he played Warrington. And Tonka looked at me, and I thought they were going to drop me. He come over to me, he goes, "What the fuck is that?" And I said, he goes, "They're coming for me from all angles." He goes, "All props are running in and they're shouting things on the floor." He goes, Bastien looked at me and went, so I know with Matty, honestly, he'll say, "Oh, he's playing well, Craig," isn't he? I'm thinking, I just say opposite person. I'm thinking,
death warrant.
He's massive into psychology, isn't he?
Yeah, massively. Yeah.
Like on a level, he'll go to America, he'll come back, he'll go there, he'll come back. He does his bit of self-meditate, all that. But he's definitely somebody who, Jimmy's hit the nail on the head. You can't play for Wigan or coach Wigan and not have that DNA. Wayne, I don't think he's as brutal as Wayne and Maguire. Because to be honest with you, I got a bit fed up watching that type of thing. I think I did.
What I'm saying.
I got to that stage where I thought they've lost that bit of play, and I think Matty's brought that back.
Yeah.
And because lockers, he loves lockers, you know what I mean? He'd be in your top 10. I think somebody said it.
Yeah.
He'd certainly be in my top 10 of players.
But Thomas Lillard would be as well.
Thomas would be yours, wouldn't be in mine, Thomas. Sorry, I was occasionally above. Matty never ain't going me over that. We used to argue over that one. That was a big one of his. So
I think that's what my point was, that Wigan was so easy to hate because of how they went about their business. Whereas now, surely even neutral have got to go, well, what a lovely balance we've got now. They play every side of rugby well, not just let's wrestle hard and be that on the borderline all the time and that little bit nasty and niggly all the time. Now they've got everything. Matty P, whether it's a little bit of a facade for the camera,
it's not facade, it's professionalism, it's not facade.
It comes across so genuine. But I think most people will find it hard to think that he isn't someone who's got two sides, you know, and has got the ability to be that character when he needs to be, and that lovely, humble media guy when he needs to be, because he's clearly a good bloke who's got everything, which is making him, and he has been, an unbelievable coach for so long.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because one thing I had with Matty, and Joe and you, Jimmy, as agents, you know, I have to go for a player against Yestin Harris, who's played for Great Britain. You've had Martin Afire, an agent. Martin walks in a room and parents go, it's Martin Afire. Kev Brown works with Yestin. Andy Clark had his brother Phil Clark. So I've come in, and what do you do, Craig? I'm from waste industry. I went to bad football and played Division 4 at Daff and Duck, you know, that type of thing.
I'm the Yorkshire paddle champion.
Yeah, I'm the Yorkshire paddle. So we've always had that. I think Matty, weirdly, a lot of people, you're going to take this over once I've stopped here, is that Matty, when I first got friends with him, to go into when he played for Wigan, played 10, 15 years top level, Matty didn't. Matty played for League, whatever. I take piss out of him. I'm not going to say what I said, but I always say Matty didn't, and he had to do it the other way. And most coaches, do you think you have to? Is he changing the myth that you have to be a top player to be a top coach?
Maybe, yeah. I think. Well, he didn't play top level, so maybe he could be a one-off. You know. I think if you see a couple more, then you can say that is not a myth. But
the only one I can think of, and obviously not Super League, is Mark Dunning at Midland Hurricanes, who now have a Challenge Cup game against Salford to look forward to.
Yeah, and with respect to Mark, hopefully that's coming, but we're on about somebody who's won.
Oh, are you talking top flight?
No,
Sorry.
he said he never talks about Bradford. He just said one of his mum beat behind.
Hang on a second. How is mentioning Mike Dunning as the head coach of Midland?
Because you were 2 seconds away from saying he learned his trade at Bradford Bulls, of course.
I think what we're saying is top the level. He's got double back.
Yes.
Matty's the Arsene Wenger, isn't it? Is there anyone before him?
Well, that's what I'm trying to train. Do you walk in a changing room, and Danny's going through that now. At the opposite, the greatest player to ever, for me, in Super League. And he's going to have to walk in and go, right, I'm Danny Maguire, forget about that. I've got to be able to prove to these lads I can coach at this level. Then you've got Matty who walks and goes, I played at this level, but I've coached at this level. Do you get? Is it clever of him to get O'Lockers and Tommy round him?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that nice?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously guidance of upstairs who put them in as well, and obviously Matty's been coaching a long time for academy reserves, had experience in rugby union, came back as assistant coach. So he's had a lot of experience. But I was just saying, like I just mentioned then, like top players even in football, Rooney and Gerrard and Lampard, they're struggling with management, aren't they?
It's true.
So I don't have the answer.
Well, they say the top three. If you look at three, apart from Pep, Mourinho couldn't kick a grass. Wenger played Leyland Daff, second division France. Jurgen Klopp wasn't renowned as a top player, and Ferguson played 13 times for Rangers or whatever, 18. So the top four of the top goats were not top players. Yeah. But I'd like it'd be interesting to see if Matty, like you said, will that help a lot of clubs? Say you don't need to be a name. We're going to judge you on. Is he going to drag all the non-playing coaches through?
Maybe.
Well, you'd like to think. I'm a big believer that in football more so than rugby, but you could say in rugby, opportunities often come to ex-players.
Yeah.
And you can imagine a number of coaches who've been mastering their profession, like Matty Pete had, and plenty of others, for donkey's years, going through age groups, representative, and earning the stripes as a coach. I would take a coach any day over an ex-player or over a manager. Now, obviously, there's different styles of coaching, different styles of management. And if you're an ex-player and you put coaches around you, brilliant. If you're a coach and you put players around you, brilliant. It's about getting the team, isn't it? Alex Ferguson is known for not being a coach, but he was a great manager. He was barely at training, but what a manager, dislike the man all alike, but what an achievement. Matty Pete is clearly more of a coach who seems like he's got brilliant man management skills and is surrounded himself by two quality ex-players. That is what you call a winning coaching team. And that's what a lot of teams struggle to get. They always go with an ex-player who's like Rocky's just mentioned. Some of the footballers who've been gifted job after job because they were good players, and then they don't know what to do.
Would he be in your but I know we've just left Wigan, so get that you think, I wish I'd have shown Wigan more. And you've had 10 coaches, I'm assuming, in your career, including England.
Yeah.
Mark, who's your top three?
Top three.
And reasons.
So nice question. I think you'd have to put Matty one because of what he's done the last 2 years.
Because of the way he coached as well.
Because results. I think results he's got. I think that's stands out more than anything. Brings players through too. Go for him top. Probably Sean Wayne second. So obviously he's done a lot in his.
For you, Ryan. I mean, not just the game. This is
for me.
Was Wayne a coach and a manager, or more than manager than a coach, a detail coach?
Well, he had two good coaches under him when I was there. He had Jesse Harris, Paul Deacon, John Winder, what an assistant coach who got really played top level as well. Right. He won a lot of academy grand finals. He was a very good coach, to be fair. So I think having a good team around you helps you. And then third, maybe Darren Powell, yeah.
I thought you were going to say Powell. You'd taken me away for that. Because you've had, who's your others you've had?
Chessie was good in his own right as well, though. He was good on the... He was pretty good with, like, the depth of thought of plays and stuff like that. I think... when I look back now at Wakey, we should have done a lot better than we did. We finished fifth on that, but we should have done a lot better than what we did with the players and with the coaches we had. It just, maybe the environment we was in just didn't allow us to thrive in that. Cold showers, and just didn't give us the best chance to thrive in that, the off-field stuff, But I'm not...
You had Kieran Cunningham, I think, if I remember.
He was only assistant, though, at Lee.
At Lee, wasn't he?
He was only assistant, so
he was only assistant.
Yeah, and then have you had Agar?
No. That's it, I think. Neil Dukes at Lee.
Do you think it's an element...
Who did you have in England?
England. Andy Last, I think.
You've been under some top names.
I have, yeah.
Do you think there's an element... I always think that with coaches / managers, there's no one size fits all. Like sometimes the best coaches and managers are ones who can adapt their personality and techniques to the player. So certain players, I think, would thrive under certain coaches. Yeah. And we see it all the time, don't we? Can't think of anywhere better for Truey to have a brilliant year than under Powley, and things like that. I always think someone like Harry Newman would be better under Sean Wayne.
I kind of had my best consistent games under Chessie at Wakey.
I was going to say that to you.
Is that because of the
Chessie liked Ryan like you wouldn't believe. He loved you, didn't he?
Yeah.
So the confidence you felt from him.
I think it's just the consistent of game time I got. Like at Wigan over the last 2 years, like the best coach, but I barely played. Like the first year, I barely played, which was really tough. And then you come into a new season, you're building momentum. I get injured, and I'm playing at like 50%. It's like it's
tail all the time.
It's just kind of like hard to say why you're playing your best day or you're playing best. I had some really good games at Wigan when I played. Just I had some 2 bad games when I was really struggling with an injury. So that's what some people remember is some bad games and some moments you have, which is probably the situation I'm in now without a contract and that kind of stuff. People remember a bad game or your injuries but you know, you go through cycles in your career, and I'm just at a low cycle now, and it's going to take a lot of training, a lot of opportunities to get back, but you know, it can go uphill very quick as well. So
it's weird, Mick. Sorry, it's weird because we can remember Carter when he were at Wakey, and Ryan had Chesney, who were quite powerful in the club. This is another thing about coaches. Chesney really run the club. He was very close to Mike. They were like best friends, weren't they? We had to go golfing together, weren't there? And then we used to laugh when Ryan had a run of games quite good. We were like, you know, contract time. We'd be buzzing us to and be like, right, we've got him. And Ryan would be like, right, Greg, what do you think we should start? We'd put this figure right, and then we have some last one, and you could write a book. You'd walk in, and Michael would go, Rocky, did you miss 4 or 5 games? And it'd be like you'd suddenly start to feel a bit of you know what, contracts, you start to feel a bit lower.
I can remember one year, 2019, I played every minute of every game. I got singing in the last 5 minutes of like the game against London, we had to win to stay up. And I just got lowballed, and I was like,
it was unbelievable.
It's ridiculous. Like, looking back now, just like some contracts I took, I just think, wow, what was I doing?
It was unbelievable. And it's true, when Chesney had come in, and they were brilliant at it. When they think about it, they were very good at it. One day they'd say, wait, you know, it was interesting. I didn't do it for the way a pre-thing with us, but they'd certainly have like a smash and grab with us.
I think they took me lightly for granted, didn't they?
And then they'd roll it out for like months. It's weird. They'd say, well, come back. And then they knew that the options of leaving would be a thing, and then they'd be like, right, look, we love Rocky. But we found ourselves in that, didn't we, 3 or 4 years on trot, and then they'd have a big Rocky. Rocky wouldn't get loads of toffee at press. You know, when like he played really well, and they were very clever at low balling, where look at Dave. Like, Dave won everything, you know, Wakey, the saviour, and then you get this. So looking back, I'd love to have asked them, there were a lot of psychological shit going off with you there, wasn't there?
I think like I did stay loyal quite a bit, and I did have options up elsewhere, didn't I?
That's what I'm saying.
A lot more money. Looking back now, I kind of think, should I have took it? I think financially I do. Get a bit.
Well, the Huddersfield one coming in.
Okay,
out, I'm sure.
Whilst we've got you both here, what does 25 look like?
Well, we're going to do a separate thing on that after this, where I want us to really get into it.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, isn't it? It's interesting with contracts and things, like he's just said. The LKR one we did, we got offered LKR one, and the offer come in, and we're like, looks like we don't get some. So we're at Wakey, we're like, there's no other offer, and I've gone, no, we've got an offer, it's in writing. And they, you know, the Curry Club would have been strong, and I don't know whether Michael and Neil Udgell at that time would have been close, and this offer's coming, and suddenly they know about the offer at the same time as us, Wakey. So we're like, well, how do they know? And it were like, oh, well, out of respect, we like to tell, and we were like, what the?
Yeah.
We're in the middle of, and suddenly Tony Smith rang, I think it was Tony, and said, we're dropping the offer.
Yeah.
So
like 20 grand or something.
Honestly, like, what do you mean you're dropping your offer?
Like
you can't put an offer in and
Yeah.
then drop it. Yeah, well...
He bought poppadoms on Thursday night.
We've more or less found out that they've only offered you this, so they knew the Wakefield offer.
Yeah.
And they were like, so we're only going to offer you this. I went, go and out of pride, we went, go and stuff your contract up you. And guess who won that one again? Yeah. Michael and Jay, they won again. We were sat there going, they've done us again, weren't we? We were like, how have they got out of this one?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Yeah. Mick, roll on to Leeds.
So I was just going to say, you know, we're moving on. By the way, those that are watching this, there is a championship preview with me and Jimmy coming out. You are? Jimmy, you've got paddle at 4. We've got plenty of time. You were at Headingley yesterday, Craig. I must confess, as Ryan says, there will be no overreaction from Matty Pete. There'll be no overreaction from the Wigan fans. How good were Leeds?
Just carried on what they did at Wakey in that first half. Just extremely aggressive, extremely massive collision. Options, looks to me this year, they've got options in every area. I can't believe they've lost the way. If it's true,
sounds like it.
I want to say a little thing here for him. He was, I was unsure about him.
Thivo, yeah.
Oh my God, like he was very colossus. And
in backfield.
There'll be hell on here because when they brought him off, they were carrying him off, and I thought they should have got the stretcher, but he must have said, for whatever reason, we'll walk him off. You're talking, I thought Marcus Bai were big. This kid's twice as big as Marcus Bai. His legs next to me and Joe were like that. And they've got a doctor, and he's literally... I'm thinking, what are you doing? And they were shouting players to come and help get him off. There seemed a bit of confusion. And then you realised how bad it was. Me and Joe were literally 6 metres off him. I thought it's bad, because them lads are so tough. You know how tough they are, and he were like... He was trying to tell him...
don't you? If it's an
ACL,
Nothing's been confirmed, but in rugby league circles, they're saying out for the year. ACL.
I'm not sure with stuff like that. Like when I did my ACL, I walked off.
You walk off?
I walked off, mate, yeah. So
that's what I was going to say.
And that's the worst case scenario. I broke my leg.
Yeah, but he's 90, 80 God. This lad's got to be...
It's 130.
I thought they were going to fall him over. I didn't think he went off the pitch. He stood on the side of the pitch for 5 minutes, and he were like, what is going off here? And then anyway, they got him off. He would have been Colossus. I'm biased. We got to see Riley Lumber, fantastic. Should have scored 2 tries. I've already texted him last night. He played on the left, and twice he had the number. Didn't put the ball in his left hand, so cut in. Right. If he'd just gone an outside, he scores 2. And he said to me, I know, and I'm like, oh, Riley, because his carries were great, his catches were great, he were fantastic. Leeds are the real deal. I know a couple of CEOs have had a pop at me saying, I should have said last week Leeds will finish it 4. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll say it again. Leeds will finish it 4.
I think the exciting thing, this will be awful news if it's an ACL and it's a season, because even neutral fans would be excited to see an NRL star.
Big name.
Such an impactful player who's going to be exciting to watch in Yardage and the powerhouse. The blessing for Leeds is they've got a few young players who it's going to be an opportunity for them, where they were probably relying on Ryan Hall not playing an awful lot of games to get an opportunity. So, as always, awful news for one person might just be a little opportunity for a couple of others.
My one worry with Leeds would be is when they're in that much good ball, they don't. Wakey had 3 or 4, and I know it's against Cass. That's what Simon Bell was saying yesterday. That's ridiculous. Cass or not. Wakey shaped up as soon as they got good ball. Leeds don't go into shape like that. I don't know if they seem to go left, right. Crofty's quite an individual character. He's not. I don't think he'll be 38 assists like Gailey. I think you're probably talking maybe 6 or 7. He's a broken player. Yeah. So what they do is Cameron Smith got to push over. They just keep it in the rut. What you just said about the tactics to beat Bradford to beat. That's how Leeds play. You very rarely see someone put on winger. Now, Jake's the magic. He did a grubby yesterday to get Ashanley. I mean, what a thing for Ashanley. Yeah. Whether what an occasion for Ash. Scores within 10 minutes on your testimonial. It's a dream, innit? Jake Connor, vintage Jake. No pass on, just dropped it onto toe, bang, he ready. So put all that together, Leeds are in for a big year. I'm telling you, I've been a fan base of Leeds. I've been there. You haven't had that feeling at Leeds for a long time. Let me tell you, I'm on about leaving that Wakey game going. Leaving the next one going, no, this is different. Mikulecki, the props, he's got them fired up like absolute lunatics. The 2 or 3 new signings, and the one got injured head knock yesterday. But honestly, mate, these have got... Do you know where you watched them before? I found me saying Harry Newman and a couple, if they didn't play, and I'm not saying I'm not Harry's biggest fan, but I think Harry, for his wages, I don't think, whatever. Harry were insignificant yesterday because there's that many big players this year. That is massive. When you've got a team and you go, Bevan and the rest of them are playing well, trust me now, you're not watching Harry to get ball for these no more. I'm telling you, you've got your eye on 6 or 7 players there, you're going, wow, boom, 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 boom. But the forwards look so dominant, Mick. I mean, it's...
And you just one thing, like, I think Brodie had 20 assists last year. And Leeds weren't great last year. So the exciting thing for me for Leeds is if they're going to play this more aggressive brand of rugby, particularly in defence, and Brodie's going to get a load more good ball, there's not many better in the league, is there, in good ball than Brodie?
I'm shocked you said 20 assists there.
I'm sure he was 15, 20 assists last year. We'll check it. You put 6. It's closer to 20 than 6, I'll tell you that much. And I'm not being... pedantic, I'm just saying I think there's loads more to come from Brodie, and he was pretty good last year for me. Leeds was, had such a bad year last year.
I'm probably on the bunny ball for 300 grand. You've got to be good.
You do, but you can only be good as an halfback when you're at least in the arm wrestle, and nearly so many
I've
games
got to see Bevan. He's on the same money as Bevan. He's got to be at that level.
For me, Bevan's like the greatest player we've had in Super League. I've got him bad eye, and he's always playing behind a pack that's winning. What I'm saying is Brodie had to play behind a beaten pack nearly all last year. And we know, you know, every halfback knows it's a different game behind a pack that's dominating. And if Leeds can dominate in the middle and they're going to do this line speed and they're going to get those yards, we could see Brodie back to his best, not only back to his best at Salford, which was still probably a better year than last year, it could be even better than that. And Ben I think with Jake Connor, I've said to you off record and everybody, Jake Connor is whether Leeds are top 6 or top 4. If they get the most out of him and they can use him in a way out the back, no one better at 3-on-2s in probably the league. I agree with you. But I think he's the final piece. If they get the most out of him, like you say.
Right, does he know Jake Connor, the myth of Jake Connor?
Yeah.
We discussed this on this programme 50 times. I think Leeds could do using him as like a quarterback role where you bring him on, because if the fullback you love, the fullback you like plays,
Lackey Miller, yeah,
Lackey plays, then Jake will not have a position in the team, because I don't think they'll play Jake before Frawley because he's the only person who can kick.
Yeah.
I like Jack Sinfield coming on. I thought he was unbelievable in second half. What do you do with Jake? What do you do with a Maverick?
Like, I'm opposite of that. If to get him at team, I think you pay him 7 because
with Crofty.
With Croft, yeah.
Wow.
If you want him in the team, I think to get the best out of Jake, you need him always in the game. I think at fullback, like I said, he's good at 3-on-2s and that. But once if the team doesn't give Leeds that opportunity to get 3-on-2s, then is his backfield going to be, carry's going to be good? Is his defence going to be good? Support play, and that's not Jake's game, is it? It's his skills. It's his. He can long kick, he can pass, he can pick. So you need him constantly in the game so he can't drift out of it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Of course.
So like it might just be Jake getting the ball and doing basic stuff like running a line, hitting short, hitting right back, but you're constantly giving them opportunities to create something. So he put a Grubber through yesterday off back of shape. You need to put him in that position more to get that out of him.
But what happens when Wigan, Saints and the better teams target Jake and they go at him and he can't do that in fatigue? He can do it when he's coming on and he's got a cigar on. What's he going to do when he's making 20 tackles?
Exactly.
And I think he has to raise his game this year. This is his chance to prove he is one of the best, most talented players we've had in donkey's years, and he's never shown it. This is his chance, and if I'm with Rocky, I would love to see him with Brodie.
I don't think he can do that. I think it's impossible.
I listened to his interview, and yes, it was an interview with, I think, JJB, but he sounded to me like someone who as he gets older, is realising that he's running out of time. There's not many people who would say he's one of the most talented players, and every now and then he shows us something that's so special, but he's never proved it for a prolonged period. And I think
we all love him on here. He's been one of our favourite discussions, whether good or bad. My problem is, you play Saints, you play Wigan, you play Warrington, you play LKR. They are going to hit you. And Jake, how many tackles do you have to make when the better teams play against you?
You can make up to 30, can't you?
What happens when you make 30 tackles and then they're going to play on back of fatigue? What happens then?
That's a good question. I didn't think of that, to be fair.
And he's going to do that for 80 minutes. And what we're going to do is, how many times have you been in the changing rooms when they go, oh, would he be a spot player for Wigan, yes or no?
Yeah.
Half-back?
Yeah.
Would he be number 1 spot?
Maybe.
I think not maybe. I think you you know, like you go back to Pete and go, where we're going, lads? We're at him. And if you get Bevan one-on-one with Jake in fatigue, it's all over, boys, because Jake will come and try and clout him. And if he misses, the gaps will be bigger. And I think that'd be a plus for anybody who's in that top. I don't think the others can do it because they won't get at him. It's too good.
Yeah, great.
It's too good as a player, but the top teams can. The top teams can put people on unders and just keep. You imagine December going on the other side, just dropping him into a Jake Paul game. You'd be like, you wouldn't fancy that if you were set. You'd be like, now can Leeds cover that by what Gale used to say? Get me a fucking back rower who likes to tackle, because if you don't, I'm gone. And he
James McDonald, someone to protect.
He'd have to have somebody in there to do.
But to be a championship, to be the best team, you can't rely on your back rower to come save you, because he has to do his own job.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think get Jake on ball, play 7. That's if it don't work with Frawley. But I don't know. He's going to start full back in there at beginning.
He is while Miller's injured.
So I think it's a good opportunity for him to work on it, to work on his game and maybe come up with these answers.
And can his body, can his knees, can his body, can he? Has he still got the physicality to match the talent? And
I wish we could have more subs, because I know I'd be like, somebody got a good ball, like on tag, I'd be like, Jake! And I'd just switch him in. And I'd say, lads, this kid could win game in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But as soon as he fatigues,
Don't be giving IMG any ideas, Craig.
What an idea. I mean, you said that weeks ago, didn't you? When he said it, I was like, that's mad, but absolutely perfect, isn't it? Yeah. And maybe on what you both said, is it that in those games against the top 3-4 who could really expose his defence and make him work harder than he can, is he then used as a sub to come on at a certain point? And do they go with someone who's a bit more defensive oriented? But against the bottom half, you can put Jake on, and
100%.
He could genuinely be in it with a chance of winning Man of Steel by the end of this year.
Well, not deniable, but when it comes to the business end, and you know, Ryan, how important it is for an halfback to be able to tackle. I've seen people signing halfbacks now, and the first thing they said is, "What's his defence like?" And that's happening more and more.
That's very rated with Harry Smith. He defends very well.
He does.
He works hard to defend though as well. He's chasing from marker and stuff to make extra tackles. That's what honestly that's what he does. Wow. He works from marker to make extra tackles because he wants to keep his work rate high, and he wants to always be involved. Jake's I've got to defend here. I've got to defend. And that keeps him in game as well.
Like it.
I know when I've played half, like one of my best games is when I thought, I've got to defend first because it keeps you in the game too. Like you can't drift out of the game. It keeps you mentally sharp.
Yeah. Danny used to say that he used to get the ball early in the game and just run into contact. And I said, because I used to ring up and say, we're going to slap him all over. And I said, what are you doing? He said, I've got to get my sen going.
Yeah. And
if somebody whacks me, I've got Monk on for the rest of the game and I'm ready to go.
One of the more remarkable results from this weekend's Challenge Cup action, of course, was the game between Goole and London, which took place on Saturday. I must confess I was covering Keighley against Bradford at Cougar Park, so I've not seen the full game. I've seen the highlights. London obviously leading by 10 points to 0 and everything looking a little bit rosy, but back come Goole, and credit to Scott Taylor. I spoke to him at the Championship and League One season launch in Manchester last week. A massive result. I think it probably says more about where London currently are. I interviewed Mike Eccles last week as well. I mean, I could probably sit here for 20 minutes talking about London and where David's left the club, but, you know, Mike was very honest. You know, they have 12 players. They are using a lot of former Southern Conference League players, former London Scholars players. They are doing it incredibly tough. David effectively left the club to die. The blank checks stopped getting
I can't have any criticism towards someone who's putting tens of millions of pounds.
There's no criticism on David.
You just criticised him by saying he left the club to die.
I'm repeating what Mike Eccles said in the interview. David left the club to die.
I think that's a harsh way to speak about it.
I don't think there's anything harsh on it. I think it's a reality. And, you know, Mike has said that throughout all the interviews that he did, that London were effectively left to die.
Let me put the words into you another way. London killed the bloke for 15 years. Let's have it both ways then.
Yeah. Look.
They sucked him dry, his family dry. And for 13 years, he put 12 billion.
Yeah, I agree, Craig. And ultimately, this new IMG era, as Mike confirmed, that was enough for David, because, as Mike said, you know, David fought tooth and nail for a transitional year. The RFL, the Super League, said, no, there's no transitional year. You're going down before a ball's kicked. So you can understand David's frustrations, why he's walked away. But listen, you know, the interview's on my SoundCloud page. Have a listen to it. It's really in-depth and insightful. And what Mike says, it absolutely resonates. You know, there was only a small handful of players who had contracts which needed paying, which, without the support of the London Broncos supporters raising the GoFundMe pages, that has effectively kept the London Broncos going. As Mike says in the interview, yes, there is potential investment options, but, you know, be under no illusions. This isn't a Lee Centurion's Derek Beaumont or a Wakefield Matt Ellis or even I forget the bloke's name at Toronto, David.
Well, it has been that in now.
It is.
Mike's saying that because he's on the back of that bloke with all that.
Yeah.
And he's not going to get 10 years like the other 5 coaches.
No, but
Brian Mack could stand there and say, that bloke signed a 100,000 cheque every month.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's being disrespectful of David. Mike's just saying, when David had got it in his head that Rugby League does not want London, they do not want him in the Super League, which was obviously based on the actions of booting him out before a ball was kicked. Wakefield knew they had to win the 1895 and win the Championship Grand Final and they'd have enough points to go up. They had enough points to go up anyway with Hull, FC, Huddersfield and Salford's poor scores. But, you know, Mike's just kind of laid it down. He has 12 players under contract, the rest are trialists. Yes, there will be investment as the season goes on, but it's not going to be anywhere near Lee or Wakefield. His main focus is to avoid relegation.
Let me put this into your perspective. I agree completely, and what the lad did, Mike, unbelievable at London. Unbelievable last year in Super League with the budget he had. For me, he should have been coach here. I said this a couple of times. I said
it, and I got laughed and ridiculed.
But no, that's just normal.
For them, Craig, to pick up those 3 wins, the same as Hull FC, when you look at how Hull FC have mismanaged their cap and player roster, I thought Head and Shoulders might deserve that.
They'd have still spent more than goal on the day if you put the figures in. I know what being it. I know. That's what I'm saying. They should still have won that game. We're saying that's where London. Well, London should have beat Hull yesterday. Even though we all thought that thing, but I bet you...
There wasn't much in it. We had 7 trialists playing.
But I'm trying to say to you, one person...
The money on field, probably.
That's what I'm saying to you. So think about goal and think about London.
Well, I don't know what being
let's just say what...
I believe... when you look at London and that pack, you know, the play at Sadiq...
You've got Sadiq.
I agree, Craig. I agree. London probably had more cap on the field.
Now, let me say to you, fantastic on goal.
Amazing. What a story, what a narrative. They now host Wakefield.
Probably puts nightmare pressure on. Only problem is I bet the shit they said now, because every Championship One club will be saying we're better than them, that's a replica. There'll be a lot of things going off there. I've already had 2 texts up saying we're definitely better than them. I thought the story of the and Ryan's probably played with it, but I thought the story of that game, well, how Minzy's come back from the dead. Honestly, I have never seen a player in the history. I had Thomas Mins for 10 years. We have retired Thomas Mins 4 times. I have done a rest in peace and kissed him, and we've hugged, and he's gone. I call him 2-step, and he'll send a kick. We sit there and we go, I go, Tom, I'll never forget you. And he says, yeah. And then I look up, and he's there, and he just arrives. At Wakey, he got a free trial at Wakey, and then playing against Leeds Boxing Day. I see him carrying 6 boxes of pizza. He pitched them out of changing rooms, you know, for kids. He said to me, this is the last dance. He would say last dance. James, the CEO, who I've got loads of time for,
James Clark,
my mate Clarky, rings me up. He said, got some great signings, Craig. I think the best one's going to be, I swear it was like a ghost. I thought it was Thomas Mintz. I goes, no, he's a fireman. He's done it again. He's come back. He is James Brown. He is the legacy of the me. He then... Fordy was best player of the art against Fethbot Pinchy. I said, he can't do it again. These lot are listening to, used to a watching thing. I'm driving, trying to watch the UKR Amsterdam York game. Mincy's done a 60-yarder on Compangon and that way. He has just the Challenge Cup should do a thing on him. This kid has had mental health on a scale you've never seen. He's had up and downs. He's the only person in my life ever who scored a hat-trick for Hull KR I think it was a derby, rang me after the game in the changing rooms and said, I'll be honest with you, Big C, it's not for me. And I went, you're at your highest point, you're like 22-year-old. He went, yeah, just enjoying it, Big C. Not really for me. So I have been through, honestly, I'm so proud of him and his family and what he's done as a man. But Mincy, Newcastle, fucking Newcastle. We get to Newcastle, he signs a massive contract at Newcastle. I'm on about huge. They're making him do a rap as the preview to Newcastle. Because he can rap and he's MCing, he's going, I'm from Minzy, I'm from Newcastle. And I'm thinking, hey, no, Cal goes, Craig, he's the best thing that's ever happened to this. On way back, we get sick car, me and Sam Alice, Minzy goes, he's giving me dance and that. He rang me like that, he went, not for me, that Newcastle. We had to tell him.
The travel, isn't it?
He just said to me, yeah, it's not for me. And I was like, so, honestly, Mick, I think we should go, I think Minzy's the story. I think this is the most remarkable. I can't get my head around it, what he's doing and how he does it and what he's reinvented his son. And it's again, we're on about Gale reinvented his son. Well, trust me, this is the biggest story going into the Challenge Cup you've ever seen.
Well, man of the match was Andy Ellis as well.
What a story! My good God, 40-year-old Andy Ellis not play for. That does make it sound bad, doesn't it? If Ellis come out of retirement and come to the match.
But on a serious note, the League One this year is shaping up like it's going to be the best League One ever. Like there's so much quality, and it's so open. And Goole have come into it as a team that everyone's respecting already, and probably a few question marks about the depth, but that's same for everyone. But to go and get a result against London, we kind of knew it was going to happen. That this year, Goole were a bit behind the 8 ball, and it was going to be hard for them to get every player they wanted. And lots of players who were very close to signing for Goole had to go elsewhere because it was just a bit late in the day. If they keep this razzmatazz going, and they seem to be getting everything right off the field as well, and the socials, they've obviously already got to a great start on the field, you could see next year that Goole team even stronger, and it could be one of the success stories of a new club.
Clarkey rang me on Wednesday and he said to me, "What the F have you said on the full 80?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And I get scared when he usually blame you straight away. I'll go, "Yeah, you're saying on me." And he said, You've said that Scott Taylor's been this and the club's going to be this, and he goes, "Do you know what pressure you put on us there?" And then he went, "You didn't mention me once." So Mr. Clark, we know who's behind it, we know who's done the hard work, we know what you've been. He gave me some stick, but he said you're setting us up for a fall. Well, we didn't set you up for a fall.
Well, that win over London clearly heightens expectations, and like I say, I do feel a little bit of sorrow for London, but like Mike said, making the starting line, they will obviously go to Bradford in round 1 of the Championship. They are in the Championship, and for those London fans watching this, don't worry, we'll go into London in more detail in the Championship preview.
When you said to me on the show last week, I rang Gareth Brenton and said, "Is it true that you're buying London?" And he said, "He's in Australia." And he went, "Bloody hell, Craig, have you rang me? Just ask me that." And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, because everyone's saying it.
He's not buying London, he's helping find investment. Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
He said that.
And that's what Mike's confirmed.
The next day, Gary put something out, I think, because
Leeds did official.
Oh, well, I worried him by saying, if this cheeky gets capable of ringing me up.
Yeah, because there were all sorts of rumours. Brisbane Broncos are buying them, which Brisbane then put out and said, not happening. So, you know what the Rugby League media circus is like.
Just so we can get through this one a bit quick. OKR, Amsterdam, York.
I've not seen anything of it, so...
I watched the full game.
Yeah, I saw the second half.
It cost me a tenner, actually. Which you...
Cost you a tenner.
I want to say, I just realised, yeah.
You could have watched Keighley Bradford for free.
OKR put a lot of young players in. Fantastic concept. Seemingly, Matt Shaw's rang me, a big friend of yourselves, said to me, it was fantastic. The social were fantastic. The game were fantastic. He said he couldn't have a negative on it. He said York were very good. So that's looking for Bradford, looking for someone to challenge Bradford. I think York are going to challenge Bradford. He thought the pack were good. He thought the play was, the Joe Browns. He couldn't, the combinations. Weirdly, it's what do KR get out of it? You'll know this, right? They have 6 players who want to play Super League, and then they've got 16 juniors played in that game. Me and Joe were big on this on phone. Somebody rang up and he said, Jack Brown was best player on pitch. Well, I'm like, well done, Bamba Gascoigne. If he's not the best player on the pitch, there's massive problems. That Jack Brown, who's had 110 Super League games at 25, 26, should be the best player on the pitch with a load of young uns, and do you get me? So he'd take, and then there are about the others who didn't do it, where Willie's going to look and go, oh God, that's York, or a league below. My 4 or 5 players pushing for first team are not better than what they had. So do you get me?
No,
so
I
the top
that.
6 or 8 players at York, you've obviously only had 1 year in Championship, didn't you?
I've never played Championship.
When with Lee, I thought Lee were there.
Nah, Super League.
No,
Super League.
Up, yeah.
1, you played against Championship. Where would that... What's the difference between a Championship player top and a Super League player? Because we'd all have a right argument about this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So York beat OKR?
Well, they didn't. They beat him with a young side.
Okay,
Forget about that, right? When I'm about you as a player,
yeah.
And you, let's say we didn't get a Super League club, you had to play Championship. What from you? What's the difference between a top Championship player and a bottom Super League player?
I'd say physical condition, speed, conditioning, that kind of stuff, and then obviously, I suppose your knowledge of the game. And I mean, you see some players who who have a bad year in Super League or play for a team who has a bad year in Super League, but they're not actually at that level. It's just where they're at that moment in their career. It's just, like I said earlier, you go through cycles, and maybe York's on a up cycle, and maybe Young'uns just couldn't quite compete with them on that day. I'm not sure if you're reading too much into a one-off.
I'd always thought I'd always have York to beat a young side when Super League. I said
do.
plus 30.
It's hard to play Championship teams.
100%.
I can remember when we played when I played at Wigan and played against Lee when we was young. They just absolutely kicked shit out of us. It was 18, 19, and Lee just absolutely smoked us, and we'd never beat them in pre-season games. Like when we played against them, we had a young team and that out. So it's a big learning. It's a big learning experience for young lads. But you normally get experienced players in Championship, don't you?
Yeah.
Who just don't want to do it anymore or can't do it.
Increasingly so over the last few years as well.
And some good players. I think York's well coached by Mark Applegar, I think, aren't they? So it doesn't really surprise me that he went that way, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap it up, whilst more on the Championship and League One on the previews, but we were at the Championship League One launch, and obviously the RFL CEO Tony Sutton was there, and we were all on a round table, and we're all fighting to get a couple of minutes with him. I asked him a number of questions about the financial stability and the lack of it with clubs at Super League, with Salford, Halifax still in special measures, Whitehaven in League One, clubs being advanced central funding. Yeah, challenging times. I don't think the RFL really have a blueprint or an answer, to try and stop these clubs, from entering these financial situations. But, it does remain hopeful that under IMG, as we might see with Salford potentially this week, with London, that there is investment, forthcoming, and people can see if they invest in this club that they can get a route to League One to Champ to Super League. But what was really interesting is we've discussed the Aussie schoolboys talk, Craig. They had no answer, which didn't sit well with me. So we're still at this point.
He's played in it.
I know, that's why I'm bringing this very pertinent point up. So the word is, and again, I'll be careful to protect my sources, but the word is, and I've heard this from a number of head of youths in the sport, the word is the RFL get the Sport England money, which goes into junior development. They get it in like 2 yearly cycles. And what I've heard is the reason why this potentially might not be taking place is because the RFL is skint. Basically, the money that was earmarked to fund this tour was spent last year, and now there's no money. And we know the RFL's fighting for financial survival because of all the costs and the cuts to staff. But again, as I said to Tony, these Aussie England schoolboy tours, they are ingrained in the rich history and heritage of our sport. And I think that is a very, very poor answer to hear that they've spent the money last year and the skin.
I spoke to somebody yesterday a little bit different. They're saying it has to be organised by the English schoolboys, English, and it's the Australian school. I didn't realise it. I always thought it was the clubs. It's not. It's schoolboys.
Yeah, it's organised by the NRL with the RFL. Yeah, it's not the clubs, Craig. It is the governing bodies.
So probably why you don't see the clubs coming out in numbers saying this is disgusting is because they think it's got no to do with them. And by the way, we don't want you taking our best junior away for 2 weeks. Who might famously Stevie Ward, Brian Mack pulled Stevie Ward from the tour. He was probably the best player, or in top three. Remember, top three in the country at his age. But he went, we might need him. You're not going on no tour. I bet you Stevie now looks back. His career finished at 23. He probably thinks I should have had that under my back. I was playing Super League.
For every Stevie Ward, there's a Morgan Smithies who's gone on and is now in the NRL.
No, that's not the aspect. I'm saying for him, looking back, he's had all these injuries. I think it was smart. I think Stevie wanted to go on tour. I think he did want to go on tour. He did. Yeah. That was a big thing. I think it's mine. Game changing for these lads. I watched their tour. I watched all the matches. It was sensational. You don't ever hear clubs moaning about it. That's your problem. Clubs control Super League. You've said it more than anybody. If Wigan come out and said, this is disgusting, we've got a billionaire here who's willing to put 200,000 pay for lot, which they can, like that, I tell you now. They could get around 4 richest blokes in Rugby League and put this to bed in 4 seconds. The reason is the clubs are not progressively pushing And if we get any club moan about it, I'll buy us all around because I don't think one club moan about it.
Well, it's the Super League launch on Wednesday. Be rest assured, I will be asking. By the way, this might go out before the Super League launch, but Matty Pete, I am on your media list, and this is a question I will be asking you as somebody at Wigan who has invested a lot of time in junior development, scholarship, and academy. I just think this has to take place. There has to be a way to get this to take place, especially with Australia coming over for the Ashes.
Leave it to Ryan to finish. What were you like for you as a young man playing for England?
Yeah, I loved playing for England Academy. Dave Elliott was as head coach, and he made it such a good time for us. Honestly, it's one of the best things I did. Going on tour, yeah, it's brilliant. Honestly, we got battered by Aussies, but in 2 tests, but I think they had the best team ever. I think about 15 out of that squad is playing NRL now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the way you think you had the best team,
Yeah.
I remember watching these going, and just mention some of the names in your team.
In our team, John Bateman, Ben Curry, George
Williams,
yeah.
Sutty,
Joe Burgess,
yeah, somebody.
Lewis Tierney. We had a good team, but they had like Paulie, Moses, Luke Brooks, Tanganawa, Clint Gufferson. Their team was...
And that's what I'm saying by the history and the heritage. You look back at these and there's certain players actually who fall off the nose of a cliff and you don't see them again, but the vast majority go on to Super League, go on to the NRL.
The myth, we've had this story here 5 times. Is it true John Bateman, after that first test match, said to lads, if it's on, I'll pick your player to have a go at? And he told Liam McAvoy to punch the winger of Australian boxing champion.
Yeah.
And he knows shit out of him, didn't he?
Yeah. It was
tell the story, right?
It was exactly the both brawls were exactly the same. So,
one of the best fights I've ever seen.
Yeah, we'd kick off to them. They'd do the set. They'd kick deep. First tackle would be a brawl straight away. Second test, it happened within the same. But on the way, Australia were doing a kick chase. Jordan Morrison just picked somebody out and just whacked him, and then it was just like a massive brawl, like the worst, maddest brawl I've ever seen in my life. Like people just getting banged on the floor.
I've seen it on YouTube.
It was ridiculous. Yeah.
And is it true John said to Beans, did you pick your man who you wanted? Or
I don't think John told him to. I think Macca just tried to go after him and he just whacked him. But I'll tell you a funny story about that actually, because we played Joe Burgess in the first brawl. He jumped up and he's hit Paulie up back head. And when I
thought that was John, did he?
No, he thought it was me. Oh. So first day at Wakey, Paulie were there, and I've gone in and Paulie won't talk to me for about a week. And I'm like, hey, what's up with him? And then I found out that he thought I hit him in the back head. And we had a conversation, it wasn't even me.
Get the video out.
He thought it was me. And he didn't talk to me for like a week when I first signed.
Well, it has been the full 80 minutes on Show Me the Money Rugby League TV. Don't forget to like, subscribe. There is going to be a Championship preview, a League One preview, and a Super League preview, because in 2 weeks' time, that is when all 3 competitions start. We're going to do a very special show as well with Ryan, talking about his life and what might be around the corner. But thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.